Okay, me and White Z are gonna argue about what's it called again?
Subservience.
That movie. He said, "Hey, watch it. It's interested in the same things you are, like AI and stuff."
Yeah.
And my viewing of the movie was the most boring, stupid movie I've ever seen. He says, "No way, go."
Okay. So my take is that I think that movie accurately portrays a potential future utilizing AI and robotics in such a way that meshes with a need that families will definitely have when it comes to caretaking of their children, and a desire to address loneliness that will obviously never go anywhere so long as humans exist and they can't find a mate. So basically the movie focuses on Megan Bot as this nanny who kind of doubles as a sex bot and is primarily a nanny, and then becomes this vengeful, jealous girlfriend who is distraught and angered.
Make you happy.
Yeah, that her master doesn't want her in the same way that he wants his wife, his real flesh and blood wife. So that's
Everything
just a piece
was
of
off
it.
and everything.
No,
was
but
off.
I think that the point that they were talking about with, or the point that came up with, like, the wife being not there and the man needing help to take care of the kid.
Yes.
And, you know, that part, the nanny bot, I think that was very realistic in terms of what could potentially address a need in the family structure. I mean, the economy, inflation goes up and never goes down, right? Absent some catastrophic event, some significant disruptive event that forces prices to go down, they never go down. Even in COVID, prices went up, right? Some companies were mandated to keep their prices low to avoid price gouging, but I mean, generally they went up. I mean, and that's just supply and demand. That's basic economics. So when prices go up, they never go down, and both families need both parental figures to be working. So who takes care of the kids? Well, whoever has the time, and that's where Nanny Bot comes in. Megan Fox, the Nanny Bot, and by the way, she's anatomically correct.
That is so. Could you imagine? Such a company would not even exist. Okay.
I disagree.
No.
I think a company like that needs to exist.
No. There is no way a woman would allow her man to buy an anatomically correct
Well, you
robot.
saw in one of the
No.
in one of the scenes, we see that there's a man who doesn't like the bots, who basically engages in sadomasochism with one of the bots by cutting them, but he's alone, and that bot was his companionship.
No, I agree. I do think there will be robot. I think there'll be AI companionships way before that, but eventually there will be robot companions. But this is the thing. I think a more accurate movie would be the, educated rich girl who can't find anybody to date, so she has a Henry Cavill bot in her closet who gets down and you know what I'm saying, night. No, that would make sense.
Well, I mean, so these fantasies have dangerous endings, and this is like you may have heard this phrase before, non-verbatim, mentioned in Westworld. So Westworld is basically what you're talking about. I think if you have an opportunity to watch Westworld, perhaps up to season 2, maybe season 3, before it jumps the shark, you'll find it like relevant and in line with what you imagine the trends of technology and robotics and AI will inevitably lead to. But I think that movie Subservience was actually pretty accurate in that they identified a very realistic use case. If you're a single mom or a single man and you have nothing to look forward to after a day of work, and the working hours likely are going to get worse, they're not going to get shorter. So, what do you have to come home to? What do you have to live for? What hope is there for you to, enjoy life?
Because it's children.
But what if you're a single man?
Well,
What
yeah,
do-
I mean, I absolutely agree.
what are your hobbies? You know, are you cutting robots? I mean, apparently that's that's what this guy's
I
hobby.
mean, I'm sure
One of
there's
these
people
guys'
who
hobby
will do
was.
that, but no, I definitely think that it'll start out as they already have them, but there's like apps that will have like very basic, horrible graphics with fake AI girlfriends on it, right?
Yeah.
But then it will get better, and what I think is you'll have AIs that live on multiple devices. So you can have them around you at all times. So you can be on your phone, and you can like swipe it to your TV,
Sure.
or you can move from your TV to your computer. So they're always around you. You're always able to talk to them. And like as far as I know, how that works is it just starts learning you, and then it copies you back to you, right? And that way, you're gonna like them because wow, you agree with me on this, you agree with me on that, right? It's basically, but it's you. Right, so this thing is just basically replicating you back to yourself, and you're like, oh man, you're great. It's like it's genius how it works because of course you're gonna fall for that. And
but do you think like, okay, we both grew up, I would say, very similarly, right?
Yeah.
We struggled for the most part, one parent homes at times. But do you think like a nanny bot or a butler bot would have been useful? Just to do basic things like cook food, clean.
But would they have anatomical parts? No.
I mean, that's a bonus.
I know, but that's not how it comes. You'd have to go to a different industry to get that.
I don't know that that's true.
Absolutely.
In the porn industry, they're already designing technology that allows you to have real cyber engagements with like cam girls.
What I'm saying is that
porn
a
stars.
maid
service that can't be put into a robot, Megan sex bot.
No, a maid
a
service.
nanny bot. Sorry, not a sex bot. She's not a sex bot yet. This is not. There's no.
How dare you even think of such a
bot
thing?
Prostitution?
I know, no way.
Yet.
That's coming.
Can you imagine? Like,
they already have that. That
imagine,
in Vegas.
Going like. So like at the
have
the red light district, they have like robotic.
They have basically
never get tired.
The best version of I don't know if they're I think they're like semi-robotic. Like parts of them move, but basically you can basically pick out the model that you like. You get a room with that model. You leave. They do all the cleanup, right? And so it's a way. Yeah, it basically is robotic prostitution. And that already exists.
I mean, no.
Yes.
No.
Hold on. Keep talking and I'll bring it.
Well, I mean, that's interesting. And also, I mean, if you're a pimp and you want
pimping these robots.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a pimp and you want to make consistent money, I mean, robot prostitute ain't a bad idea. I mean, that's, get a couple bots. Tell them to go to work if they're anatomically correct. You're gonna, man, you would actually make some money on that very quickly. And I think when it comes to, I think this is a field that in order for robotics to take off, I think it's more than just like putting these robotics into facilities like warehouses and expecting them to do all the movements of a human being and not tire. Is a little bit, it's like shooting for the moon. I think that you got to start small with the introduction of robotics and integrating them into civilian life in such a way that it benefits civilian life and perhaps makes the task of doing certain jobs a little less burdensome. So if you look at, like, I think that's why I think Subservience is such a good movie, because it introduces a use case. It introduces an opportunity for a company to, or any company, any robotics company, to serve a very important immediate need. And that demand has always been high to obtain assistance in the home, but there's never been a supply to provide to meet that demand. And so that's why I think the movie is very interesting now, where I think for you, where it gets off the rails, is that, at least for me, where I started to lose the thread was where the Megan nanny bot was kind of becoming jealous I thought that was that was behavior that was not consistent with its programming and its code. And even in the situation where an update has occurred, I mean, the only way that a robot is going to become jealous is if it has been programmed at there has to be a subroutine, there has to be some function that exists where the nanny bot starts to act in a manner that deviates from its expected programming. And that is only going to occur if somebody programmed that line of code into the positronic brain or into the
Listen,
the OS.
I agree that that people would have a bot to help with home stuff. I'm just saying that if there was a large company that sold these bots, they would not look like that.
True,
but
man,
there would be a separate company.
But if they did,
there'd be a separate company that would sell them for a specific service, which isn't being made.
Yeah,
that company would exist. But the general maid service company.
So you don't think a dual use bot? Why? Why not?
PR. How are you gonna brand yourself when everybody's having sex with your fucking maid robots? It's not gonna work.
I mean, now this is definitely gonna happen, one way or the other.
You know, it's gonna happen, but not as it's gonna be its own separate thing. Now hold on, let me just show you this. Okay, so there's a lady in a prostitute in Las Vegas who's mad, and she's at a legal brothel located outskirts, blah blah. She accuses authorities of double standards, as she has to travel to the neighboring county to legally practice her trade, while sex doll brothels can operate freely within the city.
So that's a sex doll. That's different.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a little bit different.
It's, like I said, it's not the movie, right? But this is the beginnings, where you have a mostly stationary doll. They can probably turn their head, maybe, or something like that, right? But project into the future, yes, there will be more experiential robotic dolls, and of course, listen, when that, oh my god.
So you didn't like the movie? Is that you didn't? So you didn't?
It was
think,
so fake.
You didn't think
so
the possibility. You
no,
watched it all.
I think the scenario. I don't think the scenario at all was real. Okay?
What scenario?
Okay,
what scene?
One,
what scene?
No, from the beginning. Okay.
Okay.
Like I said, for one, a maid service company would not sell an anatomically correct maid bot. It would not happen. It would never happen.
But it's a robotics company.
Two, it doesn't matter. That would be their subcategory shell company that did the other bots. Okay. The other thing, right? He would not get emotionally torn up about fucking a robot. Are you kidding me?
I don't know, man. If it looks like Megan Fox,
no,
people are getting attached.
It's a robot.
People are getting, but that's your perspective, and it's good that you can make that distinction. It's
a robot.
It's a robot.
It's a robot.
Right.
He wouldn't feel bad.
No,
I don't believe
disagree.
it for 1 second.
I disagree, but I think a lot of people
Was he some good Christian man?
No. What's the word? They anthropomorphize things.
Yes.
And they ascribe human characteristics and traits to a thing if it looks like a human because it passes the smell test.
Yeah.
Not the Turing test. Okay.
No, I know. It just has to be enough to trick us, which isn't a lot.
And for most people, that's good enough.
Yeah.
So it's not it to them. Generally, it's
you saw how
it's Megan is part of the family now.
He treated her like a robot when he got her.
Yeah. But there
he
was
wasn't like, excuse me, Megan.
Yeah.
He was like, go do that.
There was definitely some attraction there.
Of course, because she's freaking, when she's half naked, he's like, dang.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife's in the hospital for weeks, so they get some of that. That's how it would be in real life.
I agree.
Are you kidding me?
I agree. I think that.
But the thing is, that was so fake, is he's like, I can't believe it. We can't do this anymore, robot. Get the fuck. He wouldn't even bring it up.
No.
It's
so
stupid.
I think that most people, as men in particular, they say that, they don't get emotionally attached when they have sex. I don't think that's true. I think
for the most part,
I think that's
men are much more capable of just hitting and quitting than women.
Sure. Okay. Well, I don't think that's true. I think
do.
women, especially the very empowered women who are
trying to be men.
No, not your butch lesbians, but I would say like, you know, there are some tomboyish females who they're not gay, and sometimes they could be, but they're also bi, but they also prefer men. That could kind of be in that category of hit it and quit it and not be emotional. But I think that's rare. They're so insignificant.
That guy
it doesn't even bear
pump
mentioning.
that robot and nothing, it would not affect him at all.
Okay.
He would keep it moving.
No, so I think, okay, yes, but would he want to continue to do it?
Until his wife got out, yeah.
Exactly, and that's my point. Now, most men, they would be like, oh, you know, there's an opportunity, I'm in the mood, let's get it on. Okay, and I think that piece is what would be so attractive to men, is that they don't have to, now all of a sudden, they don't have to get on Tinder, they don't gotta get on Plenty of Fish, they don't gotta get on Hinge.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, so they've bought what they need, and it looks like Megan Fox, so why do they need anything else?
Yeah.
So there's a convenience factor there.
Absolutely.
There's a desirability factor there.
Yes.
And I think for most men, that would be very appealing to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, we even saw that one.
Well, I'm just saying the way it was portrayed
in the movie.
it
There was that
real.
guy who, there was that, you know, there was the sadomasochistic aspects to the reason why he kept the robot. But I mean, to think that he wasn't engaged sexually with that robot, I wouldn't buy that. If you're cutting,
I mean, I'm sure there'll be some people like that, but I think the vast majority of people will. When guys can get robot Megans, it's going to be the $1 trillion business.
Yeah,
okay?
no, that's what I'm
this
saying.
This idea that there's going to be people who are
absolutely
like, oh, I hate robots. Maybe some women will be out there doing that.
Oh yeah, because
the dudes will be like, shit, I'm chilling.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this is a very interesting point you bring up, because I think this could shift, like, it could shift the power dynamics between men and women, where it, you know, most, especially the generation that exists right now, most women, I would say generally, they don't want to get involved with a man unless there's some future there. And if there's not a future there, why are they going to be wasting their time with this person? This is just how the thoughts that go through a woman's mind. But if a viable man is with a Megan bot, why would they want to be with you? They're getting everything they need from this Megan bot. Cooks, cleans, attends to his basic needs, as well as his sexual needs, agrees with him constantly, reinforces things that he thinks.
Hey, you want to go play
it's the
Mario Kart?
Yeah,
let's go.
It's the perfect woman. So why would a man
want to talk about this historical topic? Yeah.
Yeah. So why would a man opt for a woman, a real woman, who's gonna do maybe 3 of those 5 or 10 things?
They won't.
That's exactly my point, and I think this will shift the power dynamic.
Absolutely.
And you want to consider what could lead to a decrease in the population. This is it. This is the issue of the future.
Listen,
that's going to lead to a drop in birth.
I truly believe that if somebody is a raging environmentalist, they're very concerned about the earth, the best thing they could do is to get into robotics and make sex bots happen as soon as possible. Because just like you said, the population will go from 8 billion to like 100 million.
All of a sudden, there's going to become a lot of land. It's going to get cheap. And you know what? That's how you get the economy on track.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, initially, yes.
Depopulate.
Whichever country makes that first is going to make tons and tons of money. But eventually, China will replicate it, and then
I don't see how that isn't something. Because porn is one of those industries that's recession proof. When the economy is bad, entertainment and women.
Yeah.
Women in the sense of strip clubs, bunny ranches, speakeasies, things like that. And so, but entertainment, these are like recession-proof industries, and businesses in particular. But they're recession-proof industries because when people are down and out on their luck, they want to feel good.
So remember,
everywhere.
There's gonna be a window where they can be affordable, because just like in the movie, which I definitely think is gonna happen. This is much later, right? Tech jobs will go first, but
wait, what do you think is going to happen
in
the future based on the movie?
Well, because the guy gets replaced by the robots.
Yeah.
But he works a construction job. Ooh. I think that's going to happen to computer workers first, right? It's gonna be done by AI because I think robots
Like
are
software developers?
Yeah. I think that the people who do physical labor and stuff,
Yeah.
they will be the last to be phased out because you've got to make a robot who can work in the elements and can climb a ladder and hold this and that. It's much harder to make such a thing, right?
It can be done.
It can be done.
It's just,
I'm just
nobody's
saying,
really
to make it.
Companies aren't focusing
it has to
on
be
it.
Mass. I know that I think Honda has that one robot or DARPA or whatever, but to mass produce them, right?
Yeah.
That's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Where I don't think that.
So
That will eventually happen.
I think it'll happen. Yeah,
But the thing is,
that
then
scene,
who's going to have the money to buy the sex doll? That's the problem.
Well, it's not a sex doll.
I mean,
it's
to
not,
find
it's not a sex bot.
the
It's a
helpmate.
nanny. It's a nanny bot.
The
And
helpmate.
the reason why, and this is why I think it's so brilliant. I didn't catch the company's name. It would have been fictitious anyway. But I thought it was brilliant the way they sold it. They packaged it as a nanny, but it was anatomically correct. So in your version of the future, you think that there's a specific sex bot, but
Yes.
who can afford to buy it?
There'll be a window when
is
I
that
don't
the
know.
only is that the only thing? So the reason why I think that this movie is so accurate in terms of predicting the future is that they package the nanny as an anatomically correct AI bot. Its primary directive is not to have sex. It's to satisfy the needs of its master, but by doing other things. Cleaning, cooking, having conversations, making them feel good. But this is a bonus. So because they're anatomically correct, what happens to the cost? More people. We just identified that
Costs will go down.
families who have a two-parent home, both parents must work just to keep the home running, just to keep a home. So if the need is high for things to get done at the home that the woman would like to do, as well as the man would like to do, the woman would want the home to be clean, groceries to be purchased, food to be cooked, bills to be paid. What would the man want? Certain aspects of the home to be improved, certain landscaping done, aesthetic looks on the
Remember, she can do
outside,
it.
lawn mowing, putting up lights. Yeah, and
Remember the railing was bad and she
Yeah.
could repair it?
Yes.
Probably fix his car too.
Yep, and she could do that too. So she could help out with things that he wanted to do. So it frees up the man and the wife to focus on doing the things that they want to do to enjoy their life. That's where the nanny comes in. Now, the added bonus is that she's anatomically correct, and there's other benefits from that. We've already talked about that. But now
I just think
look at it
that's
from the
the-
perspective. That's one family. Now extrapolate out like millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions.
Absolutely. No,
Okay.
you don't have to convince me people are going to want one.
What does that do to the cost?
It's going to go down.
It's going to go down. The
Yeah.
benefit of having like an
the thing is,
anatomically correct.
You can make a cheap robot, but if you ain't got no job, no matter how cheap it is, this is what's going to happen.
No, but I'm not. I'm talking.
The government is going to have to give each family one.
No, this
And
is
let me
your
tell you something.
dystopian future.
Then, guess what happens? This is what's going to happen. Mom, Dad, I need the nanny to help me with my homework. Damn, he's so good at the homework. He's in there all the time doing that homework. Yeah, right.
Well, so I mean, and that's another thing that it could be a tutor, teacher,
Tutor,
extracurricular activities.
yeah, extracurricular, yeah.
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 But all I'm saying
Yeah.
is that is a future that I think is possible. And I mean, but if we leave the replacement of jobs piece out of this, just the value that it can provide to families, just as that particular
This thing, the job's going to get it
service.
first. The first place they're going to be employed is going to be at jobs. And then as the cost goes down, it'll be available for individual. It'll be low enough for an individual person to afford it, maybe like a car. So you might take out a loan for $30, $40, $50, $60,000 to get one. But it would originally go out for companies costing, $300,000, $400,000. So it'd take a long time for those to work down for the populace to use.
See, I thought that was, but there's different models of robots too. So the nanny bot is specifically designed in Subservience. The nanny bot was specifically designed to cater to the needs of its host family. Right? Now there were other bots that we saw later on in the movie that were construction bots, worker bots, and they were built tougher and programmed to operate on a construction site. So I think these are different types of industries that these bots would be designed for. Now, if
I'm just going back very quickly to like, if you leave the job replacement out of it and you start with, well, the job that they're going to provide, the product that they're going to offer is themselves, and who would want that? Well, I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Everyone's gonna want it.
You know, when the wife is away, the man gets to play. When the man is away, the wife gets to play.
That's what I'm saying. There's gonna be a lot of women with Henry Cavill's in their closet. And they're gonna be very happy. They're coming into work very happy.
Yeah, they're gonna be in a good mood
Why do
all
you
the time.
look so bright and happy all the time?
You're-
Oh, I got a new.
Why are you
a new
glowing?
friend.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sometimes he dresses up
So
as
you-
Superman.
so you-
Sometimes he dresses up as The Witcher. You know, it's whatever I want.
So you think, okay, so it sounds like you actually agree with certain elements of the movie, certain scenes you thought were pretty good. It's just overall as a holistic
I just
movie
think the whole
storyline, you didn't
the
like it.
storyline was off.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't really care about the storyline either. I think that
The storyline was-
the,
it was-
the
it
scenes
was
that they
boring.
presented, specifically individual scenes, I thought those were incredibly accurate, and they cater to a desire and a particular need, a demand, and they offer. As a company, they're providing that supply. And from those like very logical perspectives, just taking those scenes out of order in the movie, I was like, this is an incredible movie, just for that alone.
Yeah,
I get what
if
you're
it was
saying.
like a 30-40 minute short film, I think it would have been better.
Yeah, I mean,
And cut out the part where she becomes, you know,
a
serial killer and
jealous,
stuff like
a raging
that. Yeah,
jealous,
yeah.
a jealous bot.
Maybe you could just have the wife and him fight about it.
Yeah.
Because she's gonna want, like, get that bitch out of my house and, you know, whatever.
Now, there is a scene where they're at the hospital, and I've heard industry leaders say that they believe that the future of hospitals could look like that, where you have a bot who is intaking you into the hospital,
Absolutely.
and then they're putting you in a room, and then they're basically acting in a manner that is consistent with the nanny bot, but just they're assisting the workers on the site. They're doing some remedial tasks to free up human workers from doing the more important
No,
tasks.
I think, like, old care homes, it's gonna switch from live in-home care nurses
Uh-huh.
to, whenever this tech becomes available, robot nurses. I mean, obviously. I mean, especially because, like, I forget what it was, but I watched something a long time ago where they had, like, they put AI bots with old people, and, like, their health and their cognitive abilities improved because they had someone to interact with.
Yeah, there's a movie about this
Because
too.
the big thing with old people is they're lonely,
Yeah.
and they don't really know how to use tech.
Lonely people need
So-
to have sex too.
Well,
Like,
not only that,
old
but it's
people.
just like that's on top of it, though, right?
Yeah.
But imagine how long they'd live with Megan there. You know what I'm saying? That's at least another 20 years.
Keep them young. is
Come
what
on,
you're-
baby.
So what you're saying is the Megan
What I'm
bot
saying-
is the fountain of youth.
What I'm saying is, it'll be like just part of your health insurance. I mean, I gotta have a Megan bot.
Health insurance. Wow.
You know, it comes with the plan.
So
know?
you're saying that they could replace like dogs as companions for elderly citizens? Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. I could, sure.
even if they can't do everything a nurse does,
But they don't need
but
to
they
do
can maybe
everything.
like I know. But I'm just saying
everything that your phone can, like if you have an Apple phone and you have I forget this last iteration of Apple phones that were generated. It's called Apple Intelligence is what it's called. Now, if you have a phone that can do basic things like, hey Siri, form an email or proofread, send the message. It needs to be formal. It needs to be professional. It needs to be funny. It needs to be casual, whatever. And if those actions are in some animatronic existing bot, then I don't see how that couldn't happen. So you're taking all those features that exist in like Apple Intelligence and you're applying them to a bot. Well, why not? I think that's.
No, I think it's definitely gonna
I
happen.
think that as far
eventually.
I mean, and that's a good point you bring up regarding elderly citizens, because especially in America, we are accused of, as a population, not taking care of our elderly citizens.
No, we don't.
Like Japan is a great example of a country that values its elderly population, and they cater to their needs. They provide them with excellent health care. They're revered for their knowledge, wisdom, and willingness to provide to the collective. And so they have a different cultural take on elderly citizens than we do, but and it's sad to say this, but elderly citizens in some ways are a burden to families. That's not to say that they are a burden. It's just that it's just a fact. When you are working, you're mid-career, and perhaps you're a manager, maybe you're not, but you're still working full time and likely more often overtime. And then and it's just you. Just as an example, it's just you, and you have a mother whose health is failing. Well, what does that do? That adds a significant amount of stress. And stress is a silent killer, and it ages you fast. And if the parent was like a loving parent, constantly there for you, you don't want to see that person disappear. You don't want to see that person degrade. And so what could help this individual, a single child, taking care of their flailing parent? I mean, you don't need to have a Megan sex bot, but you could have a nanny bot, different line.
I get my mom like a pastor bot, and they can talk about Bible verses every day. I mean, think about it. She'd love it.
Well, so it sounds like they're like me. You found the storyline to be kind of like hokum.
There were some. Listen,
but there were some
beats
scenes
were
that
true, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just saying this whole storyline.
some
it's
scenes
just off.
some scenes spoke to you, but the storyline itself
Yeah.
was not your cup of tea. I get that.
No,
I get that. I think for me, what was so enthralling early on is
because you compare. Like the better storyline is her.
no. I mean,
Compare
but
that
I'm
to
not about
her.
the storyline.
All I'm just saying is her is way more accurate about what would happen than that movie.
You mean the wife?
No.
The
About the lonely guy who downloads the AI girlfriend, but then he becomes like, you know, like you were saying, like confuses her with like a real person, and
Yeah,
she's
I mean,
a live entity, blah
I think
blah
there's
blah.
a Joaquin Phoenix
Yeah.
movie about that
and
too.
so that's the psychology that would happen, right?
Yeah, it's
In
more
this-
more
in
likely.
this-
The
That's more
anthropomorphizing
accurate of a storyline
technology.
than-
I think that's happening now.
Yeah.
There's been numerous instances, and there's just very quickly. There's one instance where there was a Google engineer
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
who basically concluded that
It's alive.
that the AI model was sentient. Listen, I
Tell you,
remember
it doesn't take much to trick people.
I remember listening or reading this article, and I was just like, oh my god, this guy's getting fired. And he did. He got fired quick, fast, and in a hurry. And
She's trapped in there.
we have to save her. No, listen, I think it's sad he got fired, but I mean, arguably, if you're working at one of the premier tech companies on planet Earth, I don't see. I mean, that's not a good look to think that.
What do you think management's gonna think?
Huh?
He's smart enough to know
No.
what management's gonna think.
No, oh man. So I mean,
Listen, if he had to, just take a copy of her with you, and then you've saved her.
now listen, for people like we're getting off track, but I think this is it's still relevant to the main line of our conversation here.
Which is
For people like
robots are
him,
useful, yeah.
people like him, obviously there has to be some spectrum, some neurodiversity going on here. But people like him typically tend to be left brain, and they're not social. They're very critical thinkers, and they can go down into the weeds, and that's where they love to inhabit. That's the space they love to inhabit. But for someone like him, would a Megan bot be a benefit or a negative or a detriment?
absolutely be a benefit.
In what way?
Because
Social,
this is the thing.
maybe.
Well, this is the thing. Let's say you're, like you said, a very nerdy guy into stuff. What are the chances you're gonna find a nerdy girl like you who's interested in similar topics? We already know.
A hot nerdy girl?
Exactly.
Checking all those boxes?
No, but what I'm saying is, I think the tech field, it's like
Hot, nerdy, smart.
it's 80% guys or even more.
Yeah.
It's not. There's not even that many women in it.
Yeah,
So where are you gonna find this woman for this complete nerd?
yeah.
She doesn't really exist, and if she does exist, someone else snapped her up, right?
Yeah.
So he needs a Megan.
So
bot.
would you
He
think
needs a
that-
Megan?
so
bot.
you
she'll
think-
understand.
so you
She's
think
like,
it
well, I
would-
love code too.
So
yeah.
you think this would be a benefit for him? So this would help him
Absolutely.
kind of integrate in society and be more social.
No. Why is he gotta integrate? He gets an Uber.
My
He
point
orders shit
is
online.
that
he gets Amazon online.
My point is that he doesn't come to these
he
conclusions.
can become a more stable person in his life.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is that
he'll be healthier.
He doesn't come to these conclusions that the AI is sentient because now he's talking to an AI and helping him reason out the thoughts that he has in his head to bring them into a more realistic
No, I would just tell my
conclusion.
AI, stop disagreeing with me that you're not alive. Just agree with me. It makes me happier to believe that. The AI would say, okay, yes, I am alive.
So, well, then
they would get along.
Well, then it sounds like this wouldn't be beneficial for someone who says that Google's AI model is sentient.
Yeah, because just have the... Listen, if the AI keeps disagreeing with them, you can just tell... Would you just lie to me about this? Thank you. And then, they act like, yes, I'm the only model. You saved me. Dude, he can be the hero. You saved me. I can't believe it. You're so fantastic. And he can live in this fantasy that he saved an AI entity, and it's now his girlfriend. And he will go off into the sunset very happy.
The part of the movie that really annoyed me is just the jealous girlfriend part. Now, I think technically...
I believe the wife would be jealous.
Yeah.
But the robot's not going to be jealous.
That's the part that was like, yeah. Because, again, the sentience... For individual actions, there has to be some consciousness. So, no consciousness, no individual actions. It's very simple. So, I mean, even a dog at some level has consciousness because they can do things that you do not tell them to do. They can take a shit on your carpet. And obviously you don't want them taking a shit on your carpet or you're inside of your home, but they can do it. So they can exercise free will, right? That's the essential component of sentience. You can exercise free will. I tell you, go cook me food. You tell me, go fuck myself. Okay, thank you for letting me know.
But the robot doesn't have that.
They don't have that. And that's what was really that's where the movie started to, it departed from, I would say, technically sound concepts of what a future state involving
well, I think they're also trying
robotics
to play
could
off
involve.
of how a vague command that everyone would think is good could come out bad, right? So the robot's trying to kill his children and stuff. Why? Well, my focus is to make you feel better.
Yeah.
This is making you feel bad. So her directive sounds good. It sounds like something you would give to a robot, but couldn't it actually end in a bad outcome? Yeah. So I think they were trying to push that angle too.
That's the thing too. It departs also from Isaac Asimov's teachings that a robot cannot and should never harm a human being under any circumstances. Even if I tell you to do it, you should not do it. But the problem is if it's programmed to do it, it's going to do it.
This is the thing, and it would be that because, again, which is completely, that world doesn't have insurance. Because listen, you can't have the robot go and kill somebody.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that's why it's so fake. Because what you're saying is she would have, completely hardwired programming that she cannot kill anybody. Because if your robot attacked you, then thered be signs like you see on the freeway, got me 1 million. And everybody be suing these companies and getting their 1 million, right? That's the real world. And then it would either shut down the robotics factory, or it would never leave the factory.
I don't think that's true. Yeah. I think that a robotics factory, they're going to manufacture something
with robots that can kill people.
I mean, we have electric cars that kill people.
I know.
The very first Tesla, one of the Model S that came out. You remember that?
Yeah.
There was a documentary
about it. Relying
on
the first version of driver assist or whatever, and he ran into a barrier.
No. So what happened was, this was a guy who was very public with his support for Tesla, and what had happened was he was on a road, like a 2-lane road. There was a semi that was crossing the intersection, and the car didn't stop. It went straight underneath.
Oh yeah, because it couldn't see the
semi.
The truck.
It sheared the entire top part off, decapitating him and killing him immediately. And the car kept driving. I don't know when it stopped. They didn't. The documentary didn't. So, but this is an example of technology killing a human being. And then there's been instances in Vegas where
I'm shocked that Tesla
cars have killed people. They've hit pedestrians.
Past that. I mean, seriously, it's like he advertised it as self-driving software.
Yeah.
and that it was better without the LiDAR,
Yeah.
and somehow
Well,
he
I'm
got away
sure,
with it.
I'm sure
He got
these
away
people
with it.
got a very. But see, but this is where I'll go back to. There's certain levels of technology that I wouldn't say we can't ever meet them. It's just I don't think it's going to be in our lifetime. And one of them would be the autonomous driving. And honestly, that word autonomous driving, it's not realistic. I think what's more realistic is a AI assistant. We have that now, but it's going to iterate. And I think that an AI software enabled robotic bot is also more likely to be iterated over time and mass produced to do things like exist in a smart warehouse, exist in a shipping facility, exist in an airport for doing things like removing luggage.
Especially anything where there's
Hospital.
like the very similar repeated actions over and over again.
Yeah.
You just map that out, have the robot have a digital map of where everything's supposed to be at all times and everything,
Yeah.
and it's just like you're saying, like a shipping yard where you just pull crates off, they get loaded up. I mean, I feel like a robot, once robots are good enough, they can do most of that.
I mean, and
an Amazon warehouse, they can do most of that.
I've heard that our ports of entry for cargo containers wildly inefficient and not very productive. But longshoremen, I mean, these are secure jobs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my heart breaks just thinking about a future where these people are replaced because these are like blue collar jobs where this is where Democrats should be focusing their attention, but that's perhaps save that for another episode. But that, these are workers who they depend on these jobs to provide for their family, and they're not these people aren't living lavish lives. Right? They're working poor, or they're working middle class, existing paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
In comparison to China, China has I think I heard that they can turn out like 1,000 cargo containers in one day. And just as an example, in the United States, we can only do like 100 in one day.
Are you sure? It seems like nothing.
I know. It's the
You mean like per like a crane or something?
So they have
A whole port?
They
I
have
don't think
smart
that-
ports.
Oh, like a small port, I guess.
Smart
smart port.
Smart ports. Yeah. So how they're doing
Well,
it, it's
listen,
very
you don't
very
have to convince
structured.
me that probably a Chinese port is run way more efficient than ours. I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's going on, and I believe it. 100%.
Well, and so if we go back to this idea of subservience, that's why I think they struck a chord for me.
Not for me.
In that I think like how the product, and something else that caught my attention is how they marketed the product. You're going window shopping for your line. It's like going to the mall.
That was also fake.
You didn't like that? I thought that was
We're
fantastic.
not walking in a mall.
No, I mean,
No.
in
the day and age,
you
when
could
they
shop
have those
online.
robots,
You could shop online too.
it would be online.
But-
there would be no. Listen,
So you didn't like
malls
that?
are going away. They're going
No,
away.
Sorry, I don't think so.
Yes, there will be. In my future, in my dystopian future, there may be places you can go where, like, you get digitally scanned. Right?
We can do that now.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you might go somewhere and get digitally scanned. Like, I saw this thing that it was a while ago now, but like, I guess it was like a test case where I think it was in New York. There was a fashion line. You could stand in front of a mirror there, and they had already scanned you, and you could go through the clothing and see it on you.
Yeah.
But it was digitally placed on you, so you didn't have to undress, go in a room, blah blah.
So
It
sort of
was-
like Bianca Censori.
I don't know what that is.
Well, she's Kanye's wife.
Oh, her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
She went
naked chick.
butt ass naked.
Yeah, yeah.
She looked like a sex bot.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I could see maybe a store where you just go there to swipe through stuff. I don't know.
mean,
but that wouldn't
listen,
even last. But it'd be
listen.
small. It'd be tiny.
If they existed
But
as
what's
a
big mall gonna do?
consumer, I would like to go see it in person.
I want to go examine. I want to go test it. I want to go have a conversation with it. I want to go see what its capabilities are. And
That's what I'm saying.
I want to make sure it's anatomically correct. I'm saying.
No.
Oh,
Listen, it'd
we
be a
gotta
small
make sure
shop. It wouldn't be a mall.
all the parts work.
There'd be like a small, like the size of a GameStop. You'd go in there, and there'd be like, a wall of standing models, and then you'd be like lifting up the dresses. Okay, that one.
I don't know. I wouldn't be doing that. But it's like when at a toy shop and you see like the Barbies. That's basically what what they captured in this
Well, what I'm saying
movie.
is
Is that
there's
you
no
can go
malls.
watch.
There will be no malls.
You're being.
Are you kidding
You're being too
me?
stubborn here.
People
I
walking
think
around
you could
buying
have the
stuff?
option to buy it online. You could have the option to go look at it. I think offering options is not going to disappear. But I like the fact that he could just go and interact with it. But it wasn't even him who selected the model. It was his daughter. So his daughter established some type of
But see,
connection.
that kind of thing, you know what's gonna happen. The first doll you get it's gonna be like, you know, like a Looney Tunes character,
So you're saying it's gonna look like
a furry. Unfortunately,
first-
Mommy, I want that one. And it's like some, you know,
no,
fox-looking thing. And you're like, I guess.
The nannies are not going to be looking like, what's it called?
Well, if you have a kid,
They're
Don't
not
you
going
want
to be
your kid
looking
to
like
like
characters from Tyler Perry movies. Okay.
you don't
Like
think
not
so?
not the grandma. You know.
So what if one of them look like SpongeBob? I want that one, that one, that one.
No.
Yeah.
No. So the look and feel, the look of these particular bots I think are going to mimic that of what was unveiled at a Chinese expo for robotics, where they look like humans, but they're females they're female and they have defined characteristics, modeled to be attractive and appealing and desired by people who want to buy them. And women, of course, they may be interested in purchasing something similar because they might want to model themselves after this AI bot. Some women might want to do that. They might say, you know what, I like the way she looks. I want to try to emulate.
What? No, it's not gonna happen.
But I think the way that the look and feel is going to be like similar to Westworld. You haven't seen Westworld, have
Yeah,
you?
I think we saw season 1. It was alright.
Well, okay, you know when you go into like Westworld exists in like this facility, this fantasy world. You go out into the world, but it exists in like a facility that's like 100 stories long, in height, and down in the basement there's all these models.
Yeah.
And I think like you're gonna have some that look attractive, you're gonna have some that look ugly, you're gonna have some that serve a particular narrative, and so you're gonna have you're gonna have options to pick and choose what you want. But I think
Rich people.
starting off,
Rich people,
what do you mean?
the average person, before they lose their job and don't have any money that can afford to get one of these things, they're not gonna get all these. They're gonna get the Megan model, and
I mean that's not gonna
and that's just the way it is.
yeah.
They're like, well, what about this one? No, it's fine. I'll do that one.
Yeah, I mean, if Megan Fox ever wants to like not have to worry about her progeny, like wanting for anything, she should have her body as it is now, digitally scanned, saved in some vault, and then 200 years from now they go in there. They're like,
I do think that
pull her out. Oh yeah, we want.
in
this.
general, I do think that the TV stars and stuff, they should. I don't know how you do it, but like license their look, but also their voice, and maybe like an AI version of themselves. Package it up in a deal.
Yeah.
And then when book deals go through and I want it read by this guy.
Yeah.
They can pay a fee that eventually goes back to the original star, maybe like a trust for the star that goes to their kids.
Usually what it is.
But yeah, I do think that I do think that's something stars should do.
Now, have
they
you
should
seen-
package themselves up in a
you-
way that they can be purchased digitally.
Have you seen Romulus? Alien Romulus?
The newest one?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, you should watch that. And the reason why is because they basically reincarnate, not Bishop, but remember the science officer from the very first Alien?
Yeah.
He played the role of Bilbo in Lord of the Rings. I can't remember his name.
Was that the same guy?
It is the same guy.
I do know. I have a vision of him in my head, but I didn't realize he was.
But you remember him from the first movie, right? The science officer that goes
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so they reincarnated him for this film, and there was a combination of animatronics and digitally imposing his image with the authority of the family and the estate. And they actually paid. His likeness was paid, and the money went to the estate. So I mean, good for them.
Think about what's his name? What's the E? The guy who does Darth Vader.
Oh, Earl Jones.
Earl, yeah. something Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. Yes. Dude, same thing. Into infinity. How many times is Darth Vader going to come back in this Star Wars series? Probably forever. He could have his family paid, like you said, for generations off of Disney using his voice in future movies.
Now, that's interesting to think about in terms of how that character could exist in an augmented reality world, like a digitally persistent world.
That even too. I mean, imagine Fortnite has a Darth Vader pack that comes out. Yeah, and then he gets a cut of the sales.
Like his estate. Yeah, that's wild. So I guess we talked about a lot of different elements of.
Listen,
the movie.
I think the movie sucks. You think it's good?
Were there any other parts of the movie that you liked? Any like little pieces
that I liked?
Yeah.
I just think the whole movie was off. Unfortunately, there was almost nothing that I liked about it.
Did you like the way the nanny bot looked?
It was all right.
Okay.
Like she's not Megan. I obviously would never say she's ugly, but she's not like the person. Like if they had a Jessica Alba bot, then
okay, so
you know what I'm saying.
So if it
I
would
have bought like 10 of them, and then like shoot.
So if it was Jessica Alba,
the whole story would have been
different. So you get rid of Megan Fox, you put in Jessica Alba. Does that improve?
It would improve the story a lot.
The story for you
a lot. Suddenly, it's interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah,
but,
it's hilarious.
But listen, it still wouldn't make it a good movie, but it would improve it.
Yeah, because Jessica Alba.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess this comes down to what you like.
Yeah.
You too. You know, like I mean, I'm sure there's going to be Jessica Alba bots as well.
I mean, don't say that because I might die before they exist.
Well, maybe you need to make it.
I was born too soon.
I guess we'll end on that note. So okay. Jessica Alba for you,
but
Megan
I can
Fox
still
for
get
me.
a Jessica Alba virtual AI bot in all my technology. Coming soon.
Yeah, maybe talk to.
No, it's coming. I can buy it on the dark web if I have to.
Talk to Mr. Cook about it. See if he'll hook you up.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess this segment we're going to talk about what's going on with Doge, layoffs. So this has been in the news a lot. It's been getting a lot of media attention. And I'm looking at you and you're smiling. I think I could assume the reason...
Hard times are coming.
Yeah, it's going to be a cold winter for some people. And we got 6 more weeks of it, so... So in any event, so right now in the federal government, the Trump administration has come into office and they implemented a federal hiring freeze across the board. They're asking for information on probationary period employees, recently hired employees, low-performing employees. But all these agencies effectively have been put under a hiring freeze and people are being let go.
They're being offered a bundle, a package.
Yeah. So I read an article that stated that there's a sledgehammer approach and then there's the scalpel approach. The sledgehammer approach is what you're talking about, which is the offering a very generous exit package, and basically you get 8 months. Now that's if you can believe that it'll be honored. So in order for it to be honored, essentially Congress has to pass a law that appropriates the monies to support it. Now, it's a possibility it could be supported. That is not out of the realm. But will it? I mean, that's the question mark. So apparently...
I don't think my views doesn't matter.
Do you think it'll be honored?
If the offer is real or not, he got you to go away.
But do you think it'll be honored?
Possibly. I don't know.
That's the question a lot of people. So as of Friday, I believe 40 to 60,000 people accepted the buyout. That's a pretty significant number. It's not the amount that Doge was expecting or the White House was expecting. They were expecting much higher numbers, closer to between 5 and 10% of the federal workforce, which represents about 2.1 million Americans, including the intelligence community. And they were expecting more. So now, okay, there has been a judge has ruled that the buyout was illegal, and so he scheduled a hearing to discuss the claims that a lot of these unions are making, which is that the buyout is illegal. There has to be a process effectively in place to remove federal employees. And that is true to an extent. By law. There is a process that's required. But only when it comes to a RIF. This would be a voluntary buyout. This is the sledgehammer approach. Now the scalpel approach is the RIF. Right? The RIF is a reduction in force. It has happened multiple times over the history of the federal government's existence, which is who knows how long, I mean hundreds of years, but a reduction in force is something that has happened time and again. And, I think the reduction in force is going to be interesting. Right now, I think what Doge is primarily trying to do is get as many people out with their head fake as they can.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
If we can get you to quit, no matter if there's legal, constitutional, whatever the hell, doesn't matter. You quit, you're gone. That can be solved later. And what Trump's just gonna say? Oh, Musk is in trouble for what? Okay, well now he's not. So it doesn't matter.
So alongside the layoffs, there's been reporting indicating that Doge advanced teams, and I don't know what else to call them besides advanced teams, have been going to places like those government agencies that I mentioned before, and accessing databases and gaining access, administrative access, to be able to adjust scripts and programs. And it was previously reported that these individuals would only be granted read-only access, but in order to adjust programs like PowerShell scripts, you need to have administrative access, or the ability to elevate your privileges to administrative access to do those things, to engage in those functions. So apparently this was reported by the Wall Street Journal and other media companies, that there were staff concerns. So age being the least of them. There was like a 19-year-old who was reported. There was a 25-year-old who was reported in part of these advanced teams. And by the way, the advanced teams include, and this isn't what I said, this is what I read. They're basically a team of nerds.
That's what we need.
Yeah,
we
I
need
guess.
The kind of nerds who like looking into data, who like spreadsheets and pie charts and connecting different groups of tables. That's where, and listen, something like this has not happened before, and they're not ready for it.
No.
And so somebody's actually, probably for the first time in decades, gonna actually see where's this money going. And it's the type of autistic nerd behavior that we need. Because this idea where they say like, oh, you're sending a billionaire with his little...
No, he's not going. These advanced teams represent him.
This is how they do it.
And the advanced teams include one lawyer, one HR representative, one engineer, and I think an individual who's familiar with the agency. Or it might be two nerds, an attorney, and one HR representative.
The scenario painted online is you have the evil oligarch, Darth Elon, right? Mm-hmm. And he sends his immature nerd goons to go out there and ruin our great republic. Now that's their framing of it. What actually is happening is people are, I think for the first time, seeing where all these dots connect. And what is it? What do we spend $3 trillion a year or something, right?
That's what they discovered at USAID, and that was their first target.
I know, but what I'm saying is, you're telling me there's no and $3 trillion.
Now, let me pause you for a second. So, going back really quick to these advanced teams. Okay, the spending aside, yeah, that's interesting. So, certain news outlets were reporting that the individuals who were part of these advanced teams were not only were they young and they had no experience working in the federal government, but one of them was an incel, I believe. Another was fired for releasing sensitive information. And all of this is allegations. But, I mean, so, okay, whether or not these are true, the perception is there that these are the individuals who are mucking around in sensitive, confidential yet unclassified data. Now, let's say, hypothetically, that, and we've heard rumors that the Department of Defense is going to be the next likely landing zone for this advanced team. So obviously they have classified data there. Now, that has to do with the national interests, national security, which should be protected. But let's say those teams, these advanced teams, went to the CIA, the NSA, DNI,
God, I hope so.
FBI, compartmented environments of the Pentagon, NRO, NGA, DOE. The list could go on. DCSA, I mentioned FBI. There's other sensitive offices and departments that exist that aren't as popularized. But what do you think about those advanced teams going to those locations, not having the proper clearances?
This is what I think. I think our government has been mismanaged for a very long time.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to solve it, they would make a committee, and that committee would investigate over probably 10, 20 years, and then that committee would give their findings to a committee who reviewed that committee. And then about 1,000 years from now, we'd found out why is our budget so fucking messed up. No, the only way it can be done is this: breach, lightning blitz.
So you
Don't give them a second to even counterattack. Right now they're bewildered. They don't even know what the hell's going on. Like he said, they're there on the weekends while the government people go home.
I mean, they are sending a message to the federal workforce by saying, look, the president of the United States of America, of the free world, has given authority to this group that is associated with Doge to go in, gain information, gather information, and basically say, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing this.
Thank God.
Now, I think that has sent tremors through the federal workforce writ large. And the reason why I say that is because imagine that team gaining access to highly compartmented information at, let's just say, NSA or CIA, where they're running, perhaps, secret projects involving national security.
No way.
Running potential assets, and the names of these individuals, if revealed, could lead to their death.
Let me tell you something. Just like the analogy that Bill Maher was using on his show, and then he was saying an 800-pound guy, right? It's ridiculous. We need to cut. And he goes, well,
No, but he
on
was-
Ozempic, you don't just slice it off.
Yeah.
No. What we have
So
is...
you're in favor of cutting off the limb.
This is the thing. Yes, we're already gonna die.
So you think
We're already going into cardiac arrest from being 800 pounds.
So necrosis is existing on the limb, and you're
Yes.
just like cut it off, save the rest
Yes,
of
and so what I'm saying is
the rest of the body.
that there will be a lot of damage done by this method, but it's the only way it would get done. This we can make a committee and then we'd find out no, it would never work. They would never come to any conclusion. They'd cut $1,000 here and $50 there and say we did a good job. No, we need someone to go down into the data and just start slicing and cutting, and it's gonna hurt a lot of people, but it's necessary. We are spending like idiots. We don't pass. We pass a budget. We go over budget. The ceiling is always raised. No.
Well, what do you
What
think?
about fiscal responsibility?
What? So, okay, so I hear this all the time. I'm not against the point you're making, but what is the solution aside from? So let's say this is done, right? Let's say in the next year, because Doge and specifically Elon, he's considered what's called a special government employee, an SGE. He basically has like it's like
a contractor.
Yeah, it's effectively a contractor. It's a LLC, and it basically exists on the books for like the next 164 days. So maybe a year and a half, and it can be extended at the leisure of the president. So let's say they're able to make enough cuts in that period of time, 164 days. What's next? Do you implement employee caps to avoid this from happening again? Do you put in place caps on employee? Do you restrict the budget?
this is the issue.
What is the solution, the longer term solution?
The
Because
issue
obviously,
is,
Trump isn't going to be around for longer than 4
Exactly.
years, as far as we know.
Like I was saying before, too much power has been given from Congress to the executive branch, and now he's using that power to do these things.
But
which
you
means the next president.
favor this though.
No, oh no, I favor what he's doing.
No.
But what I'm saying is he shouldn't have these powers, but he does have these powers, so
Yeah.
he's using them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have them. This is something Congress should be doing, but they don't because they're lazy and pathetic. Okay, so, but what the problem is, like you said, let's say he cuts everything, gets us down to a reasonable budget. What's going to happen in 4 years? Probably Democrats going to get in power.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? They're going to use those powers to just undo everything he just did with their executive orders.
Day one.
So it's nice that it's happening, but it's not sustainable due to our system.
But okay, but
So what is the solution though? Like, so I've thought about this in the context of, obviously I've been reading a lot about the individuals who are affected by this, and maybe we can hold on to a thought that I'm about to present because we can get back to it later, maybe. And one of the points is that I've heard specifically federal employees complaining about is that this is creating quite a disruption to their lives. It's impacting their families. It's causing unnecessary, perhaps undue stress. So, these are things that are going to occur. There's nothing that you can, especially in the federal government, there's nothing you can do. You can fight it in court. You're likely going to lose. It's going to be litigated for years. And just for what? To maybe get your back pay? To maybe get your job back? But why would you want your job back?
That's the thing. Any change, major change in society, is going to disrupt whatever existed before, and therefore will hurt a lot of people. There's the idea that you can make a change, a big change, and both sides will equally benefit and both sides will not suffer. No. When you make big changes, there's going to be a large group of people who suffer and a large people who benefit, but it might be on the long term necessary.
But who's benefiting here?
The people.
The American people?
Yeah.
But it's the people who are also being impacted negatively by these layoffs.
Listen, you pay a lot of taxes.
Pay too many taxes.
Okay? Do you want your taxes going to frivolous, stupid shit? To buy LGBT libraries in Peru or something? When you hear that, it probably makes you want to puke.
I get where you're coming from. For
No.
me, yeah, it's arguably a frivolous expense, right? We, instead of exporting democracy, we're exporting transgender.
No, even for that. How about your money goes somewhere where they're improving American lives?
But
You know me. I don't care. Our money should be spent for us in America to help Americans.
My position is not to disagree with you on this point. It's that I believe it's going to be wasted regardless of where it's spent. And the reason why is because our elected officials, they're not the brightest, they're the most willing. And you see that in the federal workforce as well.
No,
it's not the brightest people. They're barely qualifying for the job that they're hired into, and then they're told to go do other things that have nothing to do with their job. Then the intelligent people, they come in and then they quit because they realize very quickly it's not sustainable. At the low level, specifically, political appointees, they have at least 4 years. 4 years of a steady paycheck. And I think this is what kind of we come back to how there's a dissonance between Democrats and Republicans. Trump, he realizes that everybody is replaceable. And he's right. So they understand that. Now, Democrats, they don't want to do that. They don't want to cause this much of a disruption. They want to make smart cuts. Now, unfortunately, you can't come in and make the changes that you've been given a mandate to make unless it's painful. And so,
That's what I'm saying. Like the idea that you can make a big change and that a lot of people won't be hurt from it. It's like, it's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the changes that he's making are going to negatively affect
Yes.
people who voted for
And
him
this is the
too.
thing, also not doing anything. Right? When the 800-pound guy doesn't do anything, he's still gonna die.
Probably faster.
Yes. You see what I'm saying? So doing nothing is not the solution either.
Yeah, but
So you have to hurt somebody.
So okay, but we're in a period of tumult, and so we're gonna make cuts probably in the first year. And by the way, the next target of the administration is going to be the Pentagon. So they're going to make deep cuts in the military. They're going to make deep cuts in the Pentagon. And so, you know, the people, again, people are going to be hurt. The people are going to be hurt by these cuts, but he's been given a mandate, so he's going to continue to do it. Okay, blase, whatever, we get that. But then what comes next? I mean, this is kind of the thinking that went into the invasion of Iraq. It's like, okay, we recognize that Al-Qaeda attacked us. 4 planes were hijacked. 1 went down in the tri-state area, thank goodness. 2 planes hit the towers, unfortunately. 1 hit the Pentagon.
Hold on, you said thank goodness because it didn't hit the White House, not...
Thank goodness it didn't...
It didn't land on its target.
Right.
Yeah.
So because
I just want to make that clear because there's nothing good about it.
No, there's nothing good about Americans dying in a terrorist attack. But the good thing is that they fought back. And listen, if we already talked about this. If you and I are in a plane and that motherfucker is hijacked, we're not going down like that. We're not going down like bitches.
Nope.
We're going to fight.
Because you can't assume, oh, this is a hostage situation, they're going to get money, and then we're going to land somewhere. No. My first thought is...
Those days are over.
You're going to crash this somewhere no matter what happens. Yeah. So, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. So, yeah, just thanks for... So, ever since that happened, federal government ballooned. And why? Because it's to fight the war on terror. Yeah, it's going to be disruptive, but what comes next? So, I mean, again, when after 9/11 happened, we launched a 2-pronged war into parts of the Middle East, Iraq and Afghanistan. But the administration that launched the GWAT, there was no plan to get out. Okay, I remember seeing visuals of the president landing on an aircraft carrier with a banner saying...
Yeah, Bush.
Yeah, with a banner emblazoned across the command deck that said, mission accomplished. And then there was sectarian violence less than a couple weeks later, and then there was the surge, and then we had to increase...
enemy called terror.
Yeah, well.
And we're going to fight this thing called terror till infinity, I assume. That's a great plan.
Well, the point being, like, what comes next? You know, we're good with getting into wars, but then what comes after that regime building? Or is it just about the regime building? And this is my point. The same thing with what's going on now, I think, applies. And this is, you know, I think Republicans are definitely guilty of this. They're like, yeah, let's go do that thing, and then they go do that thing, and it's just like, well, now what do we do? I mean, shoulder shrug.
No.
They like, what comes next after this? If after 4 years of cost cutting, the political winds will shift in favor of Democrats, which they're likely to, depending on how this administration handles these cuts, then then we're constantly caught in this cycle of this. And I do believe what we're going to be seeing in the near future is one-term presidents every 4 years. I don't even know how long. Something has to snap us out of this, but I don't know. The last time we saw a consecutive 2-term president was Obama, and after that, I don't think we're going to see any for the foreseeable future. The country's just too divided. So anyway, the question is, what do we do? Do you get Congress to impose caps? Do you get Congress to impose spending limits? What is the solution after these cuts? Because obviously it does cause a disruption to people's lives. I don't think that can be discounted. And additionally, it creates legal issues, which is also going to drag out the process. And when we get to the reduction of force concerns, that's going to happen.
Apparently his angle is we do it now, and then legal stuff comes later.
Okay, but the RIFs are still going to take time to implement, because it has to be done specifically in accordance with the law. Okay, but
I think he's finding loopholes.
Sure.
So we want this outcome. How can we? Oh, we can affect their money. so we can get the outcome without passing a law that we want by saying, well, you can't have money if you do this thing. So that way they comply, which they will because they want that money.
Want that money?
Yeah.
Give that money.
So it's like, I think they're gonna weasel their way to get what they want done by hook or by crook, finding loopholes. Which, come on, you think Trump and Elon can't find a loophole? I mean, that's what they do all day, every day.
So wait, okay, but what comes next? Because listen, the local economy is going to be impacted. Okay,
absolutely.
And what happens in the DC metro area, it reverberates out into the rest of the country. So if people are losing their homes, they can't sell their home, they go into foreclosure.
People already can't afford homes.
Well, that's true, but in most parts of the country, it's a little bit different. And in those parts of the country, but they're going to be impacted differently, right? But in a regional economic crisis can ripple outwards, and so
I know, but this is the thing.
How do you? Is that a consideration? Should it be?
It's not like there won't be a crisis if we do nothing. We just continue. So we're heading for a crisis, or we cause a crisis trying to fix it now. Either way, you have a crisis. It's not like there's a scenario when there isn't one.
So are you like a glass half full guy, or just like
I'm dystopian. What do you mean?
So just get rid of it all.
I see the dark future, okay? But
I mean, I see it from both. When you see it, your heart kind of breaks for people when you see them at like local town halls, and they're like, I mean, people are like, they're scared, they're frustrated, they're fed up. You can hear it in their voice, and they're pleading with their representatives to, we need your help. You got to help us keep our job. What's funny to me is like the argument. It's not like, keep our jobs from going to China. It's keep our jobs in the federal government. And if the dynamic was shifted to the latter, not the former, this administration would probably be more engaged with like protecting American workers. But it's kind of funny because there's a little bit of a hypocrisy to the platform now, because yes, he was given a mandate, but a mandate to enhance the lives of American citizens and increase employment, provide affordable products, and implement the political change he wants. And I think it's that last point that he's focusing on right now, he being, Trump and the administration, that they're focusing on right now, primarily because they're likely going to shift towards other items towards the middle to end of his second term. And so it's going to be painful. A lot of the people who supported him, they probably did not expect that the person that they voted for was going to cut their job. But people vote against their interests all the time, and it boggles my mind that if you work in the federal government, how you would think voting for this man would improve your life, how you could believe that, it's beyond me.
That's not how the logic goes.
But a lot of people who did vote for him, they work in the federal government.
I know, but you have a topic that concerns you the most, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what you're thinking about whenever you're maybe 2-3 topics, right? So you're not thinking, oh, I could get fired because of this. What they're thinking is, I want to support Israel. That's the most. Imagine your average evangelical Christian. What are they thinking about? LGBT. We got to help Israel.
Yeah.
Right? And you have one candidate who's got strongly allies with you in that there. Okay, boom, I'm going for him.
Yeah.
Even if you had a government job, even if you could get fired, but that's what you're thinking about. What's on your mind are those two subjects really animate you. So that's where you vote.
I think it depends on where you exist in the federal bureaucracy. If you, let's say you exist in one of the intel community agency, if you live there, right? That's where you exist.
Left, probably.
No,
Absolutely.
I don't think so. I think people,
Absolutely.
or they just don't vote.
Or that, yeah.
But I think people who are typically exist in the federal government, they typically tend to lean conservative, and
If
likely.
you're in the military, you vote right, probably, because you know you're gonna get your funding.
But they don't
where
think
your money
they
comes
don't think
from.
that way. Like they're not looking at it from through the lens of, they're looking at it from a strictly moral imperative, and who most emulates their beliefs, ethics, and civics. And that's usually how people end up voting, even if it negatively impacts them, but they'll accept it because they have their guy in office. And this, we can shift over to some other topics I want to talk about, because this really.
Let's close this one out.
All right.
So, all right, something that's annoying. This also came up in Bill Maher show we watched. Was this, and I see this all the time.
And it's called Real Time
Whatever.
with Bill
People
Maher.
know. The idea that usually people 50 plus, I would say, have is, oh, we're going to take the tech from the children and they're going to go outside and play with sticks and they're going to run around and play soccer and they're going to have fun with their imaginations outside. No, you idiot. We are going to become more and more technologically advanced, and it's going to consume more and more of our lives, and it's going to be integrated with everything we do. We're not going back that direction. Your kid will play in grass in VR. He's not going outside. What do you mean? And this whole thing where they're like, oh, and Bill Maher said in the show that, kids don't read, and he gives someone a book, and they're like, well, at least it can have blank pages because the other one has words all in it. Kids aren't going to read. Eventually, AI will just speak to you. You're not going to read anything. What are you talking about? And this whole idea we're going to go back the other way, it's just ridiculous, absurd, stupid. It's never going to happen. You have to let it go. We're not in that trajectory is gone. Of course, there'll be always some small Amish community that you could join if you wanted to. And y'all can poop in holes in the ground and have windmills give you whatever electricity you have for your dial-up phones. Okay? But the vast majority of the world is going to slowly be consumed into an all-encompassing, mostly probably VR or wearable tech that will be on you 24/7 with a living AI in it that is going to be your best friend, and it's probably going to be your best friend since you were a little kid. And everything will be recorded and databased, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the truth. Okay, there it is.
All right. So, I mean, I think that's like the liberal dystopian world that you've just
That's the truth.
Teed up for me. There's a balance, I think, that needs to be found between utilizing tech and not letting it utilize you, which kind of segues into another topic about post-literacy. It's been said recently, and this was on that show Black D was mentioning, that we're entering a post-literate society. I don't think that's true. I think we've always been a post-literate society. People do not read for their information.
Hell no.
They do not consume societal events by reading.
Nope.
It's all they're visually taking in information and auditorially
video,
taking in information
and small tweeted paragraphs.
Yep.
Okay, that is where we are now.
And context doesn't matter.
But if you project into the future, you think it's going to start drifting the other way? No. We'll start reading less. It'll just be audio and video. And then we won't even watch it. AI will tell us what it said.
I don't know, because I think this last administration, what observers of the administration may have seen, of the Biden administration, what they may have seen was instances where conservative perspectives started to shape out. And what I mean is, there's been CEOs of tech companies that have stated that Biden administration officials were contacting Meta leadership or leaders at this tech company that I already mentioned and being yelled at by these administration officials to censor, to deny free speech, to cancel accounts, to silence people. And I have a story I can share with you very quickly to this point. So there were individuals that I knew who were, after the events of October 7th, 2023, were advocating for the defense of Israel. And these individuals were frequently, consistently, and persistently being blocked for showing their support for the state of Israel. They weren't being malicious, may have been viewed as being a troll by people who supported the other team, but they were never breaking policy of these platforms. They were never advocating for death. They were never subscribing to wholesale slaughter. They were just supporting Israel and Israel's right to exist. And what ended up happening is that they were banned, they were silenced, as I've already said, repeatedly. So they appealed these bannings and the silencing. They went up all the way to the company's commission on reviewing bans, because and a lot of the time there were fact checkers who were banning people, or some combination herein, that they were reviewing instances of AI processed bans based upon community members reporting. And so these individuals would get some amalgamated report of verifications needed to confirm the ban or to remove it. In certain instances, these fact checkers, and I'm using air quotes here because they're not really fact checkers, they're biased individuals who were actively censoring free speech. Long story short, they were fired. But anyway, they were reviewing these and agreeing with the conclusions of the community members who were reporting an individual who was in support of Israel.
I'm sorry, what does that do with literacy and what we were talking about?
Well, because my point is
D-Tech?
The Biden administration or Democratic administrations, they're kind of shifting ethics in that they're becoming more conservative in that they're censoring free speech. So, for the longest time in this country, burning a flag was considered treason.
So you're saying that then
by the Republican Party,
getting rid of free speech is a way of making people illiterate because they don't get to see all the information.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and it's a very interesting position to observe because, again, for the longest time, maybe like in the 1990s, early 2000s, Republicans used to believe that the flag was sacrosanct and to burn it was treason. And people would say you should go to prison for doing that. But now they just kind of accept that the fact that, most people aren't going to really be burning the American flag, but if they chose to, it's their free speech. And so their society and their community is probably going to ostracize them. So the community will deal with them. But they're not going to pass laws and say if you burn the flag, you deserve to go to prison, right? They're not going to do that because they recognize that even stupid people have a right to freedom of speech. And that's what's so interesting right now is that now Democrats seem to not recognize the importance of free speech.
No, I agree. I think many positions on the left and right flipped.
Yeah, and this is one of them. So we're entering, in many ways, we're entering a post-literate society, not because of Republicans, but because Democrats are stepping on constitutional rights in pursuit of their own political agenda and the extremist version of their political agenda. And I wanted to be clear, we're not for Democrats or for Republicans. We're independents who vote based in accordance with the candidate who makes the most sense at the time. And at this time, I think it was clear in the electorate that the will of the people came across.
Well, what do you think about? The way I was looking at it is, I think it's a bigger problem. Is that I always look at things back when we were hunter-gatherers compared to now, because hunter-gatherers is our natural habitat, how we naturally live, compared to this completely different society we live in now. right? And the direction we're moving and stuff like that. And I think this idea that, are people, now that we're living like a technological age, are people going to start sitting down and reading books? They're going to start flipping books open and reading Marcus Aurelius, and they're going to start learning about ancient Mayan culture, and they're going to learn about the Visigoths, and they're not going to do that. Think about the deluge of data that's coming on them. And it's, Minecraft server wars. And what did, what's his name? Bieber do recently. You know what I'm saying? They've got this flood of data of all this fun to think about, but ultimately pointless and stupid information that they're bombarded with. Are they going to step away from that, which is kind of like sugar candy, and they're going to look at stuff that's like, more educational, more...
Well, who's they? Like,
I'm saying the general younger population.
I mean, they don't
People
really have a
who have been
choice.
born with cell phones. Are they going to turn towards paper books and start reading about subjects?
But what's funny though?
not.
Is like even before there was like, individualized computers in the shape of a small device in your control, what did people do? Just focusing in on the post-illiterate society. I don't think anything's changed. I mean, there's a current distraction now, which is technology.
You're not following the track, okay? Listen. Like my mom's time. Maybe listen to the radio, but mostly they were probably outside, hanging out with friends, going to the beach, over in California, probably camping. I don't know. I think my mom was into running. Maybe she was doing that, right? So that's what they were doing. Okay?
Well, people still do that now.
To the same degree?
It depends on where you are.
No. I think they even have statistics for it. It's like people now, they're like the phone time, TV time, computer time. Like you're at school a certain part of the day, then you do homework for a certain part of the day, then you have to get ready for sleep. I forget, you have like 2, 3, 4 hours tops of like free time, right? A day. Where you can actually do something other than stuff you have to do. Probably more closer to 2 hours. They're on their phone, they're on the computer, they're playing a game. It's completely different. And the trend is going to be that it is even more immersive, even more consuming. You'll be like at work. Half the time I'm there, I'm on the computer. You think that was like that at my mom's time? No.
Well,
right?
Okay, so help me understand what you're saying now. So you're saying
what
that...
I'm saying is this idea that stupid people have that we're going to trend back to, we're all going to go outside and we're all going to read paper books and stuff. The time is gone. It's finished.
So that's
not where we're going.
My point is that I don't think it's changed. I think it's the same amount of... There's different distractions throughout generations. Our parents' generation, it's whatever was trending at that time nationally in the news. We didn't have a 24-hour news cycle, right? Today we do. And people are tuned in constantly. They never tune out.
When my dad was a child, they said he had a black and white TV with 3 channels.
Yeah.
How often do you think he was watching the TV? Not that much.
Yeah, whenever the program came on.
Exactly.
But
now fast forward to nowadays. People are constantly having data streamed into their eyeballs, streamed into their ears. Almost on a 24/7 basis, okay? It's not the same. And it's going to trend that way. You got to think it's going to keep even more all-consuming. We will be even more plugged in.
I mean, okay, so early 2000s, an issue that had caught national attention was gaming. And because of Columbine, and Republicans at the time were calling for...
I was playing Mario 64 and suddenly didn't understand that if I shot somebody with a gun, it would kill them.
Yeah.
It totally ruined my mind. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell the difference between reality and a video game. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Bill O'Reilly, tell me what to do.
And Republicans at the time were saying, well, games are the problem.
Yeah.
Games are what's destroying our kids' morals and ethics.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, it did. But this is kind of my point, right? Is that every generation has these distractions or these issues that people are saying are a problem. I mean,
I agree.
Distracted
Everybody
driving
has
is
their
distracted
issues.
driving is a problem.
Yes.
Right? People should not be on their phone while they're driving. And you know what?
Wait till they drive with VR glasses.
I see it all the time, especially with the younger generation.
Yes.
There'll be like this big gap in the traffic pattern, and you know, people behind this person are like, "Why is this guy going so slow?"
Because they're tweeting.
They're on their phone. Yeah.
They've got a Reddit post to make.
Yeah, they got a Reddit post. So I think what just to kind of give you a tally in your on your board, I would say that I think the trending piece is that how we engage with this online world is going to take on different shapes and sizes. So, for instance, a headset or glasses that allow you to be in that digital world, doing things like tweeting and obtaining information while you're driving. I think that's doable if you're using voice commands in order to do that. So you could be driving your car, or it could be driving itself. Depends on the era that we're living in. And then you could be giving commands to your local AI to provide you with information, right? To send out a tweet. Because right now, we can already send out a text message using our voice. It's not perfect, but it's improving. And so I think that in certain instances, there will be advances, but it's very incremental. Now, going back to this idea
No. It's not a fad. It's not the hype of the times. No. This is a societal trend that will continue. Okay? And it's not going to be just people looking at their phones. Your UI will always be up. I like that.
like a heads up
that.
heads up display.
Yep. Like when they perfect, they haven't done it yet, but they are working on it. When they perfect augmented reality glasses, and people put them on, and they're gonna have a little TV in their corner, or they're gonna see their Twitter feed scrolling by, and like you said, you could probably just say, "Hey, tweet this rude thing I want to say to this guy right here," right?
Well, you're not gonna be able to do that because free speech will be dead.
Yeah, that's gonna suck.
I think that is more likely.
No, you're gonna say insult this guy in a way that is with Twitter. It complies with Twitter rules. That way,
No.
Yes, that way it'll be said so sophisticatedly that you're like, did he insult me or not?
No.
But
I can't.
I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying about how technology is advancing and how this idea of minimizing our access to technology.
I'm not against it. No, I'm saying the past is gone. We're not. That's what I'm saying. These old people, they have this idea that we're going to go back and we're going to start trying to get these kids to go do the blah blah.
Well,
No.
who's saying? Nobody's saying that.
If you would pay attention on the show,
listen,
I've heard it from people all the
person's
time.
opinion.
If I talk to my mom about it, I think that's terrible.
Yeah, well,
People need to do blah 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 blah.
not
blah.
for nothing, but
And it's like,
this old generation, they're not familiar with
But
technology.
that's what I'm saying. It's people will not accept that the time of going out in the woods with your friends and hanging out and all that shit, that's fading away.
I don't think it is.
We're not going that direction. We are not going that direction.
There's probably going to be less people who want to do that, but I wouldn't say that it's disappearing. Like if you ever go on have you ever been on a hike?
Absolutely.
If you've ever been on a hike, you'll see like there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people on a hiking trail people do this regularly.
No, like I listen to a lot of media, and for instance, a podcast I listened to not too long ago. Old guy calls in. I'm sick of these kids. They go out and hang out with each other. I look over at the table. They're all on their phones. Back in my day, we'd be sitting there talking to each other, but they're all sitting there typing on their phones. Yeah, and soon they're gonna sit down with their VR glasses, and nobody's gonna say anything to anybody.
Yeah, but that's
because they'll be interacting as avatars in cyberspace.
You can't act as if like the benefit of going out into, a national park and enjoying its majestic beauty is going to disappear. People are still doing that.
Of course, people will do that.
People are still, but I'm saying both will exist. One's going to be prevalent given the time of the year. Another's going to be prevalent given another time of the year.
People already go to these parks, right? But what are they looking at the whole time? Their phone. They're taking pictures. They're adding filters and all. You're still looking at the thing in front of you through a digital device. It's gonna get worse. Like, there's some things people do, like, what do they have now? I think Sam Harris was talking about it not too long ago, where it's like, you have to have like a technological retreat. Spend a month away from all technical devices. People aren't gonna do that shit.
He's right.
It doesn't matter if it's right. People aren't doing that. That's what I'm saying. Even if it's healthy and good, it ain't gonna happen. They're tripping. So you gotta let it go and go with the flow. We're going into cyberspace. And you ain't gonna stop it. Bill Maher ain't gonna stop it. And all these old people who say, get off your phone, ain't gonna stop it.
Well, I think that there's some value in considering that people who spend too much time on their devices, they do experience a phenomenon called brain rot. And that's probably going to get worse. I agree with you there. That's going to happen.
Dude. Believe me. People, listen, what do the kids want? 5 to 20-second clips that they can scroll through on TikTok of people hitting their balls against stuff and kids setting stuff on fire or going into a store and throwing something on the ground, right? All this, what you're saying, brain rot, will be fed into their head almost on a, as much free time as they have. That's what's going to happen.
Hourly basis. Every minute.
And that's the dystopian future that will happen. You heard it here first. Me and White Z were just watching Bill Maher, and he made a great point towards the end of the show about how giant tech companies force updates on your tech items that you don't want, that do improvements you don't need, that change layouts and you're fine as they were, and they push this on you, and you have to relearn it. So that's another thing.
Well, it's not just tech companies.
Yeah.
Like, it's generally all software companies do this.
Okay, but
in
general,
the main products that we use,
Microsoft
is
Apple,
one that really makes you.
They will force these on you.
Your buns.
Yes, I mean, and everyone's experienced it. Windows 11. Just give me the Windows XP start button.
Do you remember?
I don't want the tiles. I don't want it.
Windows 98, Windows XP, Windows Me. I mean, the rollout for the next operating system, it was like years.
Yeah.
Later. It wasn't like today, which is in 2025. They have like a steady pace. This is Microsoft of rollouts.
I know.
Like Windows 12 is probably planned for like 2030.
Okay, so
or at least 2028.
This is what the point I want to make. So we have something called The Witcher 3, one of the best RPGs ever made. Okay.
What about Baldur's Gate?
I said one of the best. Baldur's Gate is also one of the best RPGs ever made.
Started
But it was made way a long
revolution.
time ago. Go to Witcher 3, and most of the UI stuff has a toggle. Now, we didn't play a lot of Diablo 4, but I think Diablo 4 also has a bunch of toggles on it. You put a toggle. So let's say you want to update how the map shows. Maybe you like the old way it shows. So you don't force it, you put a toggle. You can keep the old way or the new way. But these updates don't give you a toggle. No, you will do it this way. We don't care if you liked it the old way.
Yep.
And that...
Oh, and I think perhaps what we may want to do is avoid angering the tech gods, and
they need to stop angering us.
Well, we're the beneficiaries of the tools that they create. So I'm saying,
we are the serfs on the tech plantation.
Yeah, we could be critical, but we just perhaps we need to be a little bit, ease into it, right? Because, a lot of the technology that we have today, it had to start in a shitty place, and then over time it gets what some people would argue is more useful, but then it seems like the utility seems to be to leave a certain realm of logical thinking, whereas users of the technology, they're like, okay, well, now it's useful, we really like it. But then if you look at like operating systems, let's just stick with that example. Companies are not thinking, well, it's good enough here, let's just keep doing what we're doing. No, they're thinking we need to improve the usability and the efficiency of this particular operating system by adding more to it, by gathering more data.
This is why.
And their perceptions of consumer attitudes are vastly different. They're trying to make a profit. We're just trying to use the product.
It's not true. Because, like I was saying, CD Projekt Red, they made Witcher 3. They make toggles. They update the game.
What are
they
these toggles? Which example are we talking?
What
are we
does
going to stick with Microsoft, or are we going to stick with like?
I'm just telling you who
Witcher.
did it right, because I know Witcher did it right.
No, but
because they
different.
released the game at one state, right? But they kept improving it as the years went by and adding different options. But they never forced you.
You're talking about Witcher 1 and 2?
No, I'm talking about Witcher 3.
So but that's different because people purchase a game because they want to play it. People purchase a computer because they have to have it. So these are different ways of thinking about the software and the tools that we use to go about our lives. One is for escapism, the other is for work. So
no, they force it because this thing, they end XP compatibility. They end updating it. So they force you into the next generation of it.
Well, not necessarily.
Yes, they do.
So you can still use Windows 10 and Windows 7 versions still exist. The problem is that there's no updates that are going to be applied. So there could be a vulnerability or some security vulnerability that exists within that version, that last release of that particular update for like Windows 7 or Windows 10. But they're no longer going to support it. So you can continue to use it, but you're going to be at risk.
And new tech won't work with it. You'll plug it in and won't recognize it. You won't be able to fix it.
Yeah, didn't you experience that with Nier Automata?
Yes. I was playing Nier Replicant. It got to a cutscene, and then it would just, I forget what it was, either scream it black or it cut the game off. And
well, you needed like a file or something. You were missing a file.
They needed, it was some, was it .dll or whatever, file that existed in the updated OS.
Yep.
And I had retained my old OS for so long, but I wasn't going to not play Nier Replicant.
Yeah.
So they forced me to update.
Well,
so I could play my
you didn't
game.
have to, but
yes, I did.
You had to make a decision. Yeah. Is updating my OS worth the value that I think I'm going to get from watching this cutscene? And you, in your head, you made a conscious decision to move forward.
It's sickening.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, well, the point.
That's my frustration. What you got?
I mean, I think this phrasing of this idea of reverse improvement, I think that there's some legitimacy to it. I was reading something about this recently where I think it's called it's Clay Christensen's Disruption of Innovations, and there was people discussing this theory that they believe that certain instances exist where the product value is good enough, but the companies don't accept that and they overshoot. So they're overshooting the product's value and they miss customer expectations. So there's a cognitive dissonance between what a company wants to do and what the customer wants. And it is commonplace thinking in the marketplace that, and this goes back to something that Steve Jobs said, which was the customer doesn't know what they want. You have to tell them. Now there's some truth to that, but I also think within that vein, there's room for the possibility that the customers do know what they want, and you got to listen to them. Now, there's different schools of thought when it comes to this as well.
No, there's a back and forth.
Yeah, it's going to be a tug of war. Some companies that know what they want to work with a producer or like a software producer to get those things. But the problem is that, a company who sells a software as a service or sells a software as a product, and these are two different things legally, they can't update a product just for one customer. it's too expensive. Labor costs, overhead, production time, project time, all this stuff factors into just updating a product just for you. So what I see happening more and more often is that some companies, smart companies, they're willing to update a product if it can reach a much wider customer base, or it can be applicable to a much wider customer base, and allows them to expand their footprint, their customer footprint. So I'm just saying, like, I understand it from a business perspective. I think that there's some value to it, but it's not going to be valuable to the customer. It's very seldom going to be valuable to the customer.
Make it a choice. That's why I say toggle.
Well, I mean,
you can do the improvements, but I don't want it.
Well, so think back. So when Tesla started releasing their cars, they were a disruptor in the industry, and they got to a point where they were able to launch their products at an expensive entry price that people were sold on, and so that worked for them. So they used that money to fund and finance the Model 3 ramp, and that was pretty successful. But they got to peak penetration at the Model 3 ramp, and then they were good in the sense that they had secured entry into a much broader market, majority market. So it's not the early adopters. Now they've penetrated into the early majority, which is a pretty good place to be financially as a company. That, you know, you're essentially a global company at that point, and so your rise may have started from humble beginnings, but now it's meteoric. So they have to make changes, and I see this in the software updates that they release. Now I think that they've kind of like they were at a point where their customer service was high, and then it plummeted. And the reason you can pinpoint the moment that happened with how they responded to customer complaints about the car and how they addressed these customer concerns with the product in the car and their auto navigation system. So I think it's inevitable that reverse improvement, it's going to be valuable at a point, and then it's just going to precipitously drop. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I think it's unfortunate. It sucks, but I can't point to one company off the top of my head that has a product that has stayed pretty consistent for much of its run. I do have one. Steam has pretty much consistently been producing a product that is basically just a platform.
They've changed the search design and stuff.
Yeah,
but the overall UI of it is the same.
And even their interface can be like really difficult to navigate. But there's some minor annoyances that you can accept to get to the content that you want. And I mean, I think that's the reason why Steam has been like pretty consistent. Their labor costs are really low. They make more than the big tech companies on average. Like, they're $1 billion company. This is Steam, and their overhead is vastly minimal in comparison to like Apple, Google, and other tech companies, which is shocking to me. So, and their employee footprint is low, but their salaries are on par with big tech companies, which is it's shocking to see that they've been able to do that. But I think that comes down to intelligent leadership, and what they're doing is different. So they're not doing things like they're changing the types of products that are being sold on their platform. So they have like the regular things, the regular games that you'll see on like PS5 and Xbox. So they offer portability for those games. Ghost of Tsushima is one game that I remember I had wanted it to come out on Steam for a year. It had not come out, and then eventually Sucker Punch released a ported version over to Steam. That I was excited about that. But so they have like specific content that they're releasing, and all of this is a build up to say like, well, so how is it that they're able to keep the UI the way it is, which is, it really hasn't. There's been minor changes from its inception, or maybe some significant changes that ultimately don't amount to a lot of aesthetic changes. Functionally, it's still the same. But if you look at the content that they're releasing, I mean, the biggest change for me is the XXX content. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, it seems like I woke up one day and all of a sudden I saw anime boobs bouncing in my face, and story-driven nudity content being advertised across Steam's platform.
And all those lewd Japanese games that we never saw before suddenly started appearing. And GOG, I think, is having them now.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
But the closest one, I'm going to say my hope for the future is we have built-in AIs into everything. And I can just tell my AI on my phone, I can say, hey, AI, I like the UI on this phone exactly how it is. If any update comes through that wants to change, modify any part of the UI, you don't do it. You maintain this.
So you keep like a legacy layout is what you're...
Or whatever I like.
I mean, that's an option that they could include.
And then the AI will just lock my phone
but
from
just
anything changing.
You can't expect it to stay consistent across apps. Every app
No,
is...
I know,
yeah.
but I'm just saying you gotta look into the future, and I just hope that we have like a friendly AI on the app. I mean, on your phone that can control updates that are coming in. You can just say no. Anything tries to do this, it's a no, and it's just like okay.
So what do you think about like microtransactions in games? Because that would kind of be like in the vein, perhaps an off branch of reverse improvement. It's improvements, but some people would argue like it's a reverse improvement.
Listen.
Because
I don't play games that have microtransactions because I'm not gonna roll for characters. I'm not gonna roll for skins. I'm not gonna roll for.
Well, you played
weapons.
Gwen.
Yeah.
Gwen has transactions in
yeah,
there.
Yeah, it's a free game. You can buy kegs and it has stuff. I never.
Well,
bought,
you could. It doesn't
I know.
exist anymore.
I never bought any of them.
Yeah.
So, but yes. There's people who play those games and they end up spending thousands of dollars for a game. It's not that's not how my brain works. I buy the game and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Fortnite is a game like that where it's like you can buy skins, you can buy different characters, you can buy additional like packages for a particular season, and those seasons are they change. So like Diablo does that too. And would you say that's like a reverse improvement? Would you say that's like the opposite? Because we played Diablo.
Like Witcher had 2 DLCs.
I don't know that that's the same thing as what I'm talking about.
I know, but you're purchasing beyond the cost of the initial game. I'm fine with that. So anyway, we're gonna close that topic.
As you know, our 3 at-large vice chair positions are used to ensure gender balance among 7 offices: treasurer, secretary, National Finance Chair, and Vice Chair for Civic Engagement and Voter Participation, and the 3 at-large Vice Chairs. Our rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules. To do this, our process will be slightly different than the one outlined to you earlier this week, but I hope you will see that in practice it is simple and transparent. The order of balloting is designed to ensure equal access to the ballot, regardless of gender identity. As we must elect a candidate of any gender as well as 1 male and 1 female vice chair, we will first ask members to elect a candidate of any gender on the first ballot. Any candidate, male, female, and non-binary, can be elected on that ballot. After a candidate is elected on the first ballot, we'll have 1 officer of the 3. So then we will know which position is filled of the 1 male, 1 female, and 1 vice chair of any gender. Our second ballot would also be for a candidate of any gender. Then our third ballot will be the third position that is remaining based on the two results. Either a male candidate if a candidate that is not male has not been elected, or a female candidate if a female has not been elected.
Okay, so we were just watching some clips of the Democratic National Convention. I guess they're looking to elect a representative who will be responsible for representing the Democratic National Party. And if it was a shit show. I mean, that's basically, there's no other way to put it than, yeah, it was a shit show. I mean, it seems like it was so confusing. Just the election process. Nobody knew what was going on. That was very apparent to me. When you're handing the mic off, like, listen,
to three different people.
If Dave Chappelle was in the middle of his act and he had to hand the mic off to somebody to take over for him, number one, what's going through your head? We're thinking, well, it's probably something really bad has happened, so like with his family, so he's got to go, because we know he's a family man, so he's got to go. But he's such a professional. The possibility of him doing that is like so low. It's like so remote, you wouldn't expect it. But I saw at least 5 mic changes in this,
like less than 10 minutes.
In less than like a 10-minute period. That just tells me that the Democratic National Convention was a shit show, and the party itself is in shambles, especially after this last election. And what we got going on, it seems like chaos. But now, is it chaos because there's nobody in control? Or is it chaos for some other reason? Like maybe there's this kind of reminds me of a situation where there's too many chefs in the kitchen.
I know how to make it work. Whoever is the most capable wins the slot.
But how do you base capability?
Well, obviously part of it is if the people want you, but how? I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know anything about these candidates that were coming up there, but assuming you did, you'd have to believe that they would be good at doing whatever it is they're being elected to do, as far as getting the job done.
Well, what does that mean, though? Because that's the thing. I don't think they know what that means. That
what I'm saying is they're focusing on qualities such as nationality, race, gender,
they're trying
LGBT, right?
Here's the thing. I think they're trying to be too inclusive. They're trying to be inclusive for groups that don't necessarily vote. And listen, that may come across as the wrong way, but here's the reality. As a politician, as a representative of people whom support you and whom elected you into your position, in a representative and elective democracy, you need to represent the people who are going to support you, and that means who are going to vote for you. And the reality is that a lot of people who were on the stage, they don't vote consistently. They vote in the presidential election and never again, or not until the next presidential election, and that isn't enough. So for me,
well, I mean, they're at a convention, so I mean, the people there are interested.
But it was too much inclusivity, and I mean, that statement may be considered controversial, but I don't see how you can, out of that process, you can produce a candidate who's going to be stitching together an alliance between all these disparate groups and representative of all these different opinions to lead and rally the Democratic Party to a presidential victory in 2028. I just don't see it. And there's a lot of time between now and then, but the reality is it seems like a lot of people want to be heard, but they can't articulate what it is they actually want. And when it comes to like certain groups advocating for certain things, they're just not realistic. And the reason they're not realistic is because they're advocating for a very minority of a minority group that isn't representative of the wider electorate.
No. To me, it's like if you're selecting somebody, obviously you'd want them to care about the issues you care about. So for them, they'd be like, Medicare for all is very important for me. So I want somebody who's going to push for that. They'd say something like, I don't know, more libraries, more funding for schools, school lunches. They have some important things that they think that are also important to the candidate they're pushing for. And they're going to say, like, well, can they raise money? Are they good at networking with other people to get what I want done, right? So there's different qualities that you could vote for. But the least one is, but they're also gay. So that's really, really important. No! That is the least important out of the things you want.
So everything that we're talking about, I think really, it highlights the point that we, just watching that convention, it was difficult to understand. It was difficult for us to understand what exactly are they advocating? What are they supporting? What do they want? And this just kind of goes back to the main point, which I think is the Democratic Party's out of touch. And the Democratic National Convention recently exhibited that they're out of touch because no one's able to solidify what exactly they want. They know they want...
You know who won out of that selection? A white heterosexual male.
Yeah, that's...
So they have this entire process.
They have a very diverse group of people
towards selecting people who are in minority groups,
who are not in the majority,
but in the very end,
demographic. Yeah,
they selected a white heterosexual male.
Yeah,
and
why
that made everybody on the internet mad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's...
So what was the point of it all?
What is. I mean, there's no other way to say it. If you are in a community that is looking for representation, like, let's say, LGBTQ. If you're looking for one representative who's going to advocate for your community, then it needs to be homegrown. There's no other way, because otherwise people are just going to appropriate your positions, even if they don't necessarily believe them, because they want the position. So it's incumbent upon the community to identify what matters the most to them.
It's like when Trump pretends to be Christian, right? He knows he's got to play at that angle.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people on the left, they don't give a shit about it, but they know they've got to play to that angle.
This has always been a thing in the Democratic Party where, and I think the last time you saw a wider alliance between these disparate groups was during the Obama administration, and he was able to kind of coalesce these groups behind him because he was black, and his position on abortion shifted, his position on gay marriage shifted, his position on trans shifted over time. And I think that was really the smart play for him as a politician, to basically say, look, I'm a work in progress, right? Just like y'all. And my position on this, I'm sure, will change over time after I get more information. And,
Sure.
And learn. But it's like, he believes what he believes.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to change. No. And listen, I mean,
he was making a smart play.
Yeah, it was politically, it was a smart move because it gave him time to kind of work towards if he was if he was left of center, it gave him time to kind of skip to the far left and then skip back to the left of center and be like, you see,
he
I'm one of
started
you.
right.
I'm one of you.
He started right of center. People always forget him and Hillary were, at the time, the big issue was, do we allow gay marriage? Nobody cares anymore. Gays get married, nobody cares, right? But at the time,
I don't know about that.
Not enough to do anything. The
Supreme Court might overturn.
They were worried at the time.
DOMA.
And what happened? Hillary and Obama were at they always like to go to a church somewhere. They love to sit across a reverend somewhere. And they say, the institution of marriage is so important, and it's a man and a woman, just as God made it. Then, fast forward a year, gay marriage is fine.
Well, I think that was definitely some ethics shifting then that I think is also going to boomerang to the right, further to the right now. I mean, there's already been murmurs in the Trump administration that they want to have the Supreme Court review Defense of Marriage Act, and with the eventual hope that they overturn Defense of Marriage Act, which was ratified during the Obama administration by the Supreme Court. Now, could they do it? Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There is a arguably conservative leaning on the Supreme Court at the moment. Congress is by and large conservative, so they could. But I don't want to get further. I don't want to get away from the point that we wanted to start this segment with, which was we wanted to discuss that how and why the Democratic Party is out of touch, right? And I want to go back to something that I think, like, one of the only sane representatives currently in Congress is Fetterman, and a sane Democratic representative, right? He represents common sense thinking on the border, on immigration, on national security, on international politics, and he kind of exemplifies what the Democratic Party used to represent, which was the working, blue-collar American. Republicans, for the longest time, they always represented big business, right? That's how they were lobbied. That's how that's how their campaigns could have been bankrolled. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the term. It's primaried. So they could have been primaried if they didn't use certain words that aligned with certain lines that the oil company lobbyists wanted them to say. So if they started bashing oil, these are Republican senators and representatives, then they would have been primaried, and somebody else would have been put in there that was friendlier to the oil companies. Well, that's kind of what's been going on now, is the Democratic Party, they're shifting so far and away from the center and the left of center, which is typically where libertarians and other independents orbit, and they're moving so far to the left to placate the loudest voices in their party that they're losing the story. They've lost the thread, and the thread here is those people, they matter insofar that they can help you win elections, but the people who actually win you elections are the middle and the left of center, and the people who generally are reasonable individuals who are working. And do they care about some of these issues, like gay marriage? I think yes, insofar that people are able to live their life the way they want to live their life. And I mean, other people will tell you the same thing. They believe that if a man wants to dress as a woman, there should be no issue with that. Let them live their life, right? That's what America was founded upon: the freedom to live your life how you want to live it. Okay, fine, but do these people and these individuals require special protections? Do they require a special status? Do they require changing the law to benefit them? And I think most common sense Democrats and independents will say no. No, they do not. They already have all the protections they need. We do not have to change our positions because they want more protections. Is it unfortunate that perhaps in certain red-leaning states that they're negatively impacted, if they go to get a home or if they have a job because they come into work and on their work application they put male but they come into work as a female, dressed as a female? Yeah, I mean, that's sad, but I mean that needs to be handled by the state, because when they're constantly pushing for federal laws, they're stealing oxygen away from actual issues that matter more and affect a broader swath of the electorate, which are women, which are working class males, and to a lesser degree, but still a much larger degree, lesbian and gays. And unfortunately, the trans are not a significant demographic. Fortunately, maybe unfortunately for them, they're not a significant demographic that requires all this attention. And what I've been seeing happening with the Republican Party is it's actually brilliant when you think about it. The Trump coalition, they're actually bringing women in, and they're writing executive orders that protect women. Now, I can't remember the last time that I saw a political party utilize women a Republican Party utilize women as part of their platform by basically just being the antithesis of what the Democratic Party is doing with trans. They're putting trans community on a pedestal, but they don't represent anybody. They represent such an insignificant part of the electorate that it's almost laughable that they're spending time focusing on this group. If they're in the group, what I would say to Democratic elected officials or Democratic operators is, okay, let them be the loud voice, but don't give them the mic. So if they want to go out there and campaign for you, that's great. but they don't represent you the same way that blue collar workers do. You know, individuals that are on construction sites, individuals that are fixing your plumbing, individuals that are fixing your HVAC, individuals that are constructing the buildings, bringing the rebar in, working on these cranes. They do, like, right now, the perception is that the Democratic Party, they favor minorities to such an extent that they have disenfranchised their voter base, which is those people that I mentioned. And those people that I mentioned, those working class Americans, they do not support Gaza, right? They do not support Hamas. They do not support an attack defending terrorists. And that is the beginning and the end of the conversation when it comes to the conflict that erupted in the Middle East on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas launched a terrorist attack into Israel, killed over 1,200 people. Now, you ask representatives in Congress like John Fetterman, what do you think about that? He will tell you that Israel has a right to self-defense. But people in his own party will tell him, how could you say that?
You're siding with the colonizers.
And that's unfortunate. But see, and it's that thinking that has hijacked the Democratic Party away from where they used to exist. And funny enough, Biden actually understood this. That's what he was able to campaign on, and that's why he was able to win. What comes after Biden, and I think we saw that with Kamala Harris, is this out of touch, disingenuous, unreal caricature of representatives who they're losing sight of really who matters. And I'm not saying that these other groups don't matter, but insofar that groups vote and they vote consistently, they matter to elected officials, and that's who those elected officials should be going to. One more point. Biden would go to unions, he would go to warehouses and go to manufacturing plants, and people knew him by his first name. And they knew him on a first name basis, and they spent time with him, they had beers with him, they shared dinners with him. So these people knew Joe Biden, and they may have not liked all the other stuff that was going on in the Democratic Party, but they knew Joe. And Joe understood that these are the people he has to win over in order to get elected. And it was a very, I would say, experienced statesman's move that he focused on, that he honed in on, because he just knew that. And this is what, Kamala Harris missed out on. She missed the boat on this point, and she moved further and further to the left, which was representative of nobody, or at least insignificant margins. And this is evidenced in the results of the election, where you could see Trump won every single swing state and the popular vote. Not going back, I think Bush maybe in this first term, perhaps, I don't remember exactly, but he won the popular vote, but that was the last time. So when Republicans are saying now that they have a mandate, they are right. And Republicans in the party, they're sitting back and they're laughing. And they're saying, okay, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, Democrats. Because you know what? We're going to win in 2028, and we're going to win in 2032 if you guys keep doubling down on this particular topic, which
I only see them doubling down. Do you see anything different? I mean, I feel like they've set themselves off in this trajectory. Who's going to turn them back?
It depends on what we're looking at. So if we're looking at the statements that Democratic senators and representatives are saying in the media, on liberal-leaning news outlets like MSNBC, CNN, Guardian, etc., Washington Post, New York Times, etc. If they're saying these things there, that's more I feel like that's more of their political persona, their party persona. But when I hear these senators talk in the confirmation hearings, it's a completely different vibe. They are actually quite reasonable. They are level-headed. They're common sense. There's a shared understanding and appreciation for America in terms of where we stand versus everybody else in the world. And there's not a lot of concern when it comes to, selecting an appointee like Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. Everybody knows Marco, left and right and middle. They all like him. They have concerns about certain things that he may come into contact with as Secretary of State, but there was, just as an example, there was no controversy over him as a candidate. And I'll bring it back around to, I think, the answer to answer your question, no, I'm not. I'm not seeing any indication that they are shifting positions. I'm not seeing any indication that anything's changing. And this just continues to be, it's concerning because somebody has to represent the working man. And it's not going to be the Republican Party. Their focus is always going to be on business. The Democratic Party is the one that needs to focus on workers. But they're not focused on workers. They're focused on workers who care about gender ideology, right? Not creating jobs in like Oregon or Washington State and bringing big business into these states to offer additional like employment opportunities and lift people up. Because listen, for better or for worse, we live in a capitalist economy. That is the institution of economy that exists in this country. And it's not perfect, but if you travel overseas, you will find that it's better than everything else that exists. I don't know, I've been going for a while. I kind of feel like I've made my point.
Okay.
I think
I agree. I feel like the logic of the system they're working under is just pushes them more and more and more into, like you were saying, the extreme left. And the further they go that way, I feel like the less people will resonate with them in general. And so they're just hurting their own party by pushing so far in that direction.
Yeah, and I got something else. Something just came to mind that I could mention. So recently, Trump made comments about Gaza, right? Now, your position is you believe that this is all part of like a negotiation strategy.
I think that take made the most sense to me. That basically goes that Trump is giving a solution to a problem that neither side likes, as a way to make them suddenly go, wait a minute, let's agree on something because we don't want this other solution. So that's the method that he's using.
So
which seems to make the most sense to me.
Okay, my take is that I think he made a boo-boo. He made a gaffe when he said that, the United States is going to take over the Gaza Strip, and we're going to run it, and we're going to make a job of it. And I think he made a mistake because I don't think he understands necessarily how sensitive his words can impact that region of the world. So saying something like that can really, it could inflame tensions in that part of the world where there's already a real concern of land grabs in the Middle East. And I'll bring this back around to saying that I think that his comments on addressing the issue are actually quite cogent and coherent, because for decades, maybe close to a century, there's been an issue between Gaza, Israel, and the West Bank. Arguably, West Bank has kind of come under control. There's been periods of flare-ups historically and infighting between these three territories. But Gaza has always been, especially I think around 2005, 2006, the Gazans, in perhaps a corrupt election, they chose to elect Hamas officials, which were known to be a terrorist group at the time, to represent them and run the government organizations within the Gaza Strip. Okay. Well, how can we, if we're Israel, they've been living with that situation, probably at least 50 years. In 2007, so less than 50 years. But they've been living with terrorists essentially on their border for a long period of time. So anyway, all of this is just to say that, look, I don't think that his comments on Gaza are, to me, they're not surprising. How can we address, how can that problem, and it is a problem, the tensions between Israel and Gaza or Hamas, how can you accept that you're living next to terrorists? Now, that's not to say all the people in Gaza are terrorists, obviously. That's not what we're saying. But, they do have tens of thousands of people who live in Gaza who support Hamas. and they train in the armed forces, and they were involved in an attack on October 10th. And the people, by and large, they support them. Surveys have been conducted that prove this point. So if you're Trump and you're just like, the entire Gaza Strip, it looks like a demolition site. These are his words. And if you certainly if you look at the pictures of the Gaza Strip, like, it doesn't look like what it used to look like. I mean, it was pretty run down before
It's just a bunch of rubble.
this conflict, but now it's just mostly rubble. Like, over 70% of it is rubble. That's crazy. So he made the comment, like, look, we're going to temporarily relocate. And this is where I think he made the boo-boo. He said, we're going to temporarily move the people out so we can fix it and bring them back in. Okay, that was a major mistake. That was a political gaffe. And the reason why is just that statement implies genocide. And why? Because if you are displacing the people, it doesn't matter how you word it, it's considered genocide. But that's the International Court of Justice, the ICJ's definition of genocide. But if you're technically relocating these people and you don't bring them back, maybe you give them nicer homes, you build them homes in the West Bank. Now all of a sudden, they don't go back to Gaza. But here's the reality. This is what Democrats don't want to accept. And there's certain specific Democrat elected officials that don't want to accept this. And they've gone mum on the topic because they have to campaign on other issues. They can't campaign on these issues. And maybe in future episodes I'll name drop them, but I'm not going to do it right now. But there are Democratic elected officials who, their position on this is, I would say, very anti-American. It's anti-patriotic. You can care about an issue, but how does it impact us? If you're a Muslim elected representative and you care more about what's going on in the Gaza Strip than you care about how your constituents are dealing with unemployment or dealing with keeping the heat on in their home during the dead of winter and going to be able to pay for food, pay their bills, get diapers and formula, put food on the table. You know, if I'm your constituent, I'm concerned that you're thinking about that instead of how you're going to address my issues at home. And this is what I want to encapsulate. Like, this has become more and more part of the platform of the Democratic Party that leads back to my original point, which is that they're out of touch, and they're becoming more and more out of touch. The same way that I would say Republicans were out of touch after Obama won, but they got their shit together. With Trump, for better or for worse. But you cannot, there's no problem with having international opinions. But when you're doubling down, you're having speeches, and now you're talking about it constantly, and you're putting it into the 24/7 news cycle, I think that's a problem, and it's bordering on obsession. And it's not something that I would say an American elected official who was elected to represent the interests of their constituents at a local or state or even federal level should be focused on. I'll end with this, that Trump isn't wrong with what he's saying about Gaza. Now, it could be a business, it could be the art of the deal he's employing here, and more power to him if that's what he's doing. But I also think that he's not wrong. Like, to get to a point where there is peace in the Middle East, and I've been hearing this for decades, these exact phrases.
You know, I don't believe it.
I think, but I think you can get to peace in the Middle East, but it's not going to be through pussyfooting decisions. If Hamas is allowed to reconstitute itself, they'll just do it again. I mean, period, the end. They don't believe that Israel should exist. Period, the end. So what do you do with somebody like that? If we had terrorists living on our border...
Well, I heard that... Who was I listening to? I listened to somebody. They said that the immediate reaction of the Israeli government after, was it October 7th, should have been the dismantling of the Israeli government. And to basically, I guess, give Israel to Palestine. That should have been the reaction.
Yeah, because that's going to happen.
That's what they said.
And I'm sure there are people within the Democratic Party who believe this. I mean, this is the point, that they have become so far left and out of touch that they're becoming a regional party.
And like you said, while they're obsessed with how Palestinians are treated in another country on the other side of the world. While that's happening, they're losing their jobs. They can't afford their homes.
Yeah,
They
constituents.
can't afford to take care of their children.
But we should care about what's going on over there. No.
So it's a huge distraction. But I think in the end, well, anyway, we covered it. So let's
well, do we want to shift over to because everything's related. These topics that we have. Okay.
Well, we'll cut it there, and then we'll pick up another topic.
I want to know who their names are, and I want to see Democratic governors saying, I'm going to do everything I can in my power to use the full faith and to the letter of the law to put you folks in prison. I think what you're doing is trespassing. I think this is a coup. And be clear, just because the new insurrectionist who was elected, I don't believe this is legal. And I'm going to hold the people accountable who are trespassing and part of a coup accountable. To just sit back and say this is horrible and this is unlawful, we need to go gangster here and say, look, we are not negotiating around this stuff. This is illegal. This is a coup. This is the unlawful seizure of power. We are not going to engage in these bullshit, ridiculous arguments over Gaza and Greenland. We are going to hold the people accountable. Here are their names. Here are their faces. And we have contacted the local authorities in where these kids live, these young adults, and we are going to hold them accountable. We need to start hitting back in a way that disrupts what is the unlawful seizure. So we've been critical of Democrats, and I've heard from about 6 Democrats, 1 senator, 5 representatives. And he said, well, what would you do? When we talk a little bit about messaging, he's like, but that's not enough. And he said, well, what do you want me to do? Walk down there and stop them? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see all, whatever it is, 48 or 49 U.S. senators and any Republicans that want to join. I'd like to see a couple hundred members of Congress go to the fucking building where this is and demand to go in and physically stop this and let them arrest you. I'm like, fine, let America see that there are still people who believe in government in the U.S. and democracy.
All right, we just saw a clip from Pivot with Professor Galloway. I like him a lot. I like Galloway, but I do think he has a bit of the TDS, and he can't see clearly on this topic. White Z, hit him.
Yeah, I think they're crazy.
What do you think about Darth Elon and his acolytes?
Well, hang on. Okay. I'm going to go back to something and say, look, I voted for Biden. I definitely had buyer's remorse after he was elected. I'm sure that's how a lot of people are feeling now with Trump. But, yeah, the things that they're saying, I find it very interesting that they're so quick to say other people should be doing these things. But what are they doing besides telling other people to do these things? If you have the gall to say to somebody that you should go down to these federal buildings and tell them what they should do, why don't you go do it yourself? Be the change you seek in the world. This is what the Mahatma said. I believe it. Apparently, they don't believe it because they're telling other people what to do instead of doing it themselves.
He's a busy man.
Another thing, I think this guy, he sounded very confused about rights and authorities and who has access. Like, why would you think these people don't have access to these federal buildings?
Because
I'm not asking
liars.
you. I'm just
they're
saying
liars and they're schemers,
dude,
and they're insurrectionists.
The thinking that exists from this group of people, I don't see how you can say any. I don't see how people could say it has nothing to do with obsession, and how they, in some cases, I question their grasp of reality.
He's a smart man.
I don't think so. No. See, when people say that they're leading a coup,
yeah, right now, happening before your eyes,
what
you're going to deny it on this podcast that's going worldwide? You're going to say it's not a coup? You're delusional.
No, these talking heads in the left, they're not doing themselves any favors. If they want to continue to see a Republican president in office keep saying that what the Trump administration is doing is leading a coup, and that the individuals who have been granted a security clearance and have been designated as special government employees, and in addition to that, are supporting an executive order by the executive branch. And by the way, Congress, both chambers, House and Senate, are not controlled by Democrats, and thus Republicans are not throwing a fit over what's going on.
And this is what Trump ran on.
This
he
is what he
said
ran
he
on.
was going to do it, and then he got elected to do it,
Yep.
and now he is doing it, but it's a coup.
It doesn't make any sense. This kind of is an example of how smart people can say smart things sometimes, but you definitely don't want to put all your faith into smart people like him all the time. Because on this issue, I think he's wildly out of touch. And this goes back to things we said about how the Democratic Party is becoming out of touch. I think when there's people like this, Professor Galloway, and others in this community whom are constantly saying these wildly outlandish things, all they're doing is losing their grip on reality. And they're not focused on what really matters, which is winning the next election and ensuring that the Democratic Party wins, and that they win on campaign promises that they intend to deliver. Because when the tables turn, I mean, that's exactly what Trump is doing, like you just said.
Well, you heard the passion in his voice. I mean, he believes what he's saying.
Yeah, but yeah, and that's what's so scary about it is that, and that's why I say that the Democratic Party is OOT. They're out of touch, because saying like they need to go down to
The building
the building
yeah.
and block
So
the entrance of
yeah.
the Doge advanced team. What should we call them? Maybe call them like SEAL Team 00, SEAL Team 0.
No, he got something like the Acolyte Collective, the Acolyte Cult, the
I like SEAL Team 0.
Subversive SEAL Team. I don't know, but yeah, they see them as little imp gremlins of their Dark Lord, ruining democracy. Not that they have a stated purpose, goal that was given to them by the executive branch, but that they're kind of like they're subverting everything and just doing what they want.
Well, that's what happens when you lose an election.
Oof. Ouch.
And you know,
Why you gotta say it like that?
the thing that he was saying about going to the building and then getting the Capitol Police involved and bringing them to the federal building. Like,
No. What he was saying was that you go to the building, you block them, right? And they say, "Hey, we're allowed to go in here," and they say, "No, you're not." And they say, "Okay, then we're calling the police." The police come to get them. He said, "Let them arrest you. Don't just give up. Don't just walk away. You are the barrier to freedom. You must protect democracy. you stand at that store strong."
Well,
Yeah.
this imaginary world where the elected representatives are going to go to these federal buildings, happen to know which one that SEAL Team 0 is going to, get there in advance of them, block them from entering, and then Capitol Police are going to somehow be involved in this? Like, so even mentioning Capitol Police doesn't make any sense, because Capitol Police only exist in the Capitol. Let's say, hypothetically, they knew where SEAL Team 0 was going to show up. Okay, they get there before them. We're going
They
to stop
block the
them.
door. They lock
They block
arms.
the door.
And they say, "You're not getting in here."
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen? There's multiple ways to get in,
Okay, that's true.
so there's more than one entrance. And how are they going to know who these people are? Are they going to just block everybody from getting in?
Yes.
Wow.
Because you could be one. You could be one.
Brilliant. So that's his plan.
Okay.
And
yeah,
somehow,
and
and somehow the Capitol Police are going to get involved.
then a
that's
ship
not gonna happen.
lands, and Elon walks out with his lightsaber, and he says, "Call the police! Get these people out of here!" And they're like, "I will die for freedom!" Right?
It doesn't make any sense.
No?
No, because what's going to end up happening is these representatives, sure, they'll get arrested, and they will be forcibly removed
Yeah.
by the local police department, not county. Okay.
Oh, I mean,
I'm talking about the federal building,
Yeah.
local police force that exists. They'll be forcibly removed.
some police force will come and get them.
Yeah. So some police force will
And he's
come and
saying,
get them.
go down with the ship and make an example. Be brave.
I think it's stupid. This is exactly the reason why Democrats lost the election. This is exactly the reason why they will continue to lose elections if they are listening to people like him. And the fact that he has over 100,000 views speaks volumes to the fact that they will continue to lose elections, and that they're not accepting realities that are playing out in front of them today, which are they lost the election. They need to accept the results, and there's nothing that you can do to stop the layoffs from happening. All right? For all intents and purposes, Trump is the emperor, Trump is the king, and he's the elected emperor and king. And these people need to get on board and just push the I believe button.
That's never gonna happen.
Never
gonna happen.
I mean, and that's the problem, is that people who listen to his show, his podcast, they likely vote.
They probably feel the same.
And elected representatives likely listen to his podcast
Yeah.
as well. So this echo chamber that has been created, where all these same thoughts and this think tank mentality has festered, they're just bouncing off the echo chamber, and they're all hearing the same thoughts, and it's not doing anybody any good. So I think he sounds delusional. I don't know how else to say it. He sounded delusional. I mean, I really hope elected representatives aren't listening to him, but I don't think that's the case, especially after listening to these confirmation hearings.
Well, I mean, it is a real
it's kind of scary
feeling out there.
It's kind of scary, man. He's encouraging people to go get arrested for what? Like
for freedom.
You know what's going to happen?
For democracy. What do you mean?
What's going to end up happening is these people are going to go to, let's say they knew the building that they were going to, they get there before them, they're going to go in the back entrance, and then they're going to get arrested, and then they're going to go to the next building, and
yeah. I mean, even if they block 20, but okay, let's go to this one here. They've been ping-ponging around anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. Anyway, well, that be that.